Language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
And welcome into the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show here at 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. It's 3:32 in the PM here on a Monday. You've almost survived it, and we almost have as well here on October the 17th. 2022. Chris Arps, of course, is here with me today. And Chris, it's our first day. Sans Katie Fitzpatrick. We got some dude named Stell in the studio.
We have some dude named Stell on the radio, and would you know it, the microphone or the headphones are not working, even though I'm plugged in. Wow. That's what you'd expect. Katie's not here.
That's right.
Things are not smooth.
Sabotage.
I'm having difficulties. So.
Russians.
Can you hear us?
No, I hear nothing, but I'll try to be a broadcast professional and muddle through.
Well, we'll be fine. We'll work on that during the break.
Yeah.
How about that?
I'm plugged in now.
That's weird. It
is. So how are you guys doing?
Doing good, Chris. Chris, you did a fine job at Lincoln Reagan Days here in the county of St. Louis at the beautiful River City Casino on Saturday night.
You know, that was a wonderful event. I have to give it to Renee Artman. She is the St. Louis County Republican chair. The whole venue was decorated very, very nice, had a red and white theme. And the theme of the dinner, Tim, was Hold On, We're Coming. And that was very appropriate, I think, for what's going on in the country with the inflation and gas prices and everything in the way that it is right now. And we were fortunate to hear from a fantastic speaker. Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears just had and has an awesome story. And she was very, very encouraging and very uplifting and very inspiring. And she had a message of how to expand the Republican Party and how to win elections as Republicans in minority areas. It's beautiful.
If anybody's watching right now,
that's smooth or what? Woo!
That was so awesome. Your hair didn't get mussed at all.
Yeah, not at all. Chris didn't miss a beat. And if you're watching us on Rumble, on Facebook, or on YouTube, which you should be watching us on one of those, Chris didn't miss a beat as Tony. It was like Transformers. He was like taking off one pair of headphones and putting on another.
You know what it reminded me of? You know when you watch like NASCAR and the NASCAR pulls in and
into the pit,
and they jack that thing up and gas it up and change the tires all in about 10 seconds, and it's seamless. That's kind of how that was.
We just had a pit stop here.
Yeah, we did.
Back to St. Louis County Lincoln Reagan Days. I loved the program, the cover of the program that Chris was mentioning, and you know what? Darn it, I think I brought one home. The cover, I could have held it up and shown everybody. It has a charging elephant on it with kind of there's like a dark kind of steel metallic sky behind it, and there's kind of a ragged flag, and as Chris said, it says, "Hold on, we're coming." Boy, is that an image for the state of America at this point in time, and I believe that was a great job of the committee putting that together, that theme together. And Winsome Sears, I'll just say it, the future governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, she's freaking fantastic. You know, she's one of those people that has been in and around in politics for a long time, but yet is a normal human being, and I mean that in all the best respects. She takes time to talk to everybody. She wants to know like who you really are. Like she's not looking to the next person or through you. It was really great. Got a picture with my oldest daughter came. Winsome couldn't have been more generous with her time and herself with us in St. Louis County.
She couldn't have been more winsome.
That's right.
It is an interesting name, but Yeah, I think, and she enjoyed herself here in St. Louis, kind of get out of the Beltway, Virginia, and then to fly over country and meet the people that make the country work. And as I said, she was very inspiring. She is an immigrant. She comes from Jamaica. She's a small business owner at one time. One of the things that's really intriguing about her is she had been in state government before, 20 years prior, and she won a state rep seat, or House delegate seat as they call it, back then, running as a Republican in a Democrat black district. She won that. So she shows the path that it can be done.
She's a very interesting person, and we had a great crowd. I was impressed.
Yeah.
I was glad to see here in the county of St. Louis that there's a lot of passion. There's a lot of momentum. People are not saying, well, we did August in the primary, and that's pretty much where all the races are in Missouri now. No, there's a lot of very significant races here in St. Louis, from Eric Schmidt being hometown boy, going to hopefully drive some of the turnout to help out people like the county executives race with Mark Mantovani. We have some significant state rep races. So I was glad to see a full room and nobody having a primary hangover, so to speak.
No, not at all. The room was packed. I think there were over 400 people there. We had some politicians that were from the other side of the river as well come to the St. Louis County Lincoln Reagan dinner. We heard from, as Tim said, Eric Schmidt. We heard from the Attorney General, or the Secretary of State, Jay Ashcroft. We heard from Andrew Jones. We heard from Peter Pfeiffer, running for county assessor. I know I'm probably missing someone, but it was a good event. And Tim, that steak wasn't bad either. I don't know about that yellow stuff, whatever that was. Looked like potatoes.
That was potatoes.
I didn't mess with it.
It was good.
But yeah,
it was good. Yeah, we had a little prime rib. We had a little potatoes. We had the salad was really good. Yeah, good job with everything. And let me tell you, that venue, I think, often gets forgotten here in the St. Louis region. The River City Casino, you don't even have to set foot in the casino, which we didn't. We walked around the back, on the far side, there's the entrance into the ballrooms. If you're looking for an event space, like a huge event space, if you're looking for an event space, of course, we want you to use our friends at View 17, which can hold up to about 200 people or so. But if you need a huge event space, River City they do a nice job there. I was impressed with the wait staff and everybody was great. It was so great, Chris, once again, to be back in person with people at a large scale event like that.
And that was, I think, the second or third year that the dinner has been there, and each time they've done a wonderful job. And Renee, who has a natural gift for making things, she makes pillows that are embroidered. She is very good at decorating. She was responsible, if anyone ever saw the pictures of the venue, just how it was decorated, and the chairs were decorated real nice. It was a very good job. She outdone herself. Last year she had our friend Burgess Owens, congressman, as a speaker. This year, of course, Winsome Sears, and I wish I could tell you who she is looking to get next year, but boy, if she can snag him, it would be a huge get.
Well, fantastic. That's what definitely makes it indeed. All right, we've got a great show for you here today. Right after our first break, we're going to bring in Michael Butts into the studio. Mike is a big supporter of our station, which we appreciate so very much. He's got very important news for all of you regarding the healthcare world. Open enrollment for Medicare starting October the 15th, which would have been, several days ago, Saturday. So open enrollment started on a Saturday. You may have missed that. It's open right now. We'll talk about that and all the other many insurance products he offered and how to navigate that very complex world. We'll have former Missouri U.S. Senator Jim Talent at 4:25. Chris's Corner right after that. The Speaker Stump Speech at 5:07. And Susie Moore of Red State at 5:25. Big busy show ahead. We'll continue it with Michael Butts of MB Health Insurance Agency. What you need to know about Medicare and other health insurance products next at 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
I see a line of cars and they are painted black.
Follow us on Rumble at News Talk STL.
Never to come back.
from the Michaels Flooring Outlet Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Do you need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blind shades and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds, easy to install, guaranteed to fit. Don't overpay for new blinds. Shop and save big at Blindster.com. They wrapped up a crash from the right lane northbound 170 south of Ladue. Traffic is heavy on eastbound Page between Dealman and 170. Volume southbound 270 from 64 to Manchester. Eastbound 270 slow 170 to New Florissant. Westbound 70 at Zumbell. They're wrapping up construction from the left lane. Looks like all lanes are open eastbound 70 east of the Museo Veterans Bridge. You're starting to get heavy southbound 55 from 44 to Arsenal. And looks like a crash on Telegraph at Maycrest Drive, just north of Herb. I'm Tori Lyons from the News Talk STL Traffic Center.
From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The first widespread freeze of the season tonight. A low of 29, a little colder in outlying areas, so this is a hard freeze. Want to bring in those potted plants and consider undoing the hoses from the outdoor bibs too before you head to bed tonight. Otherwise, just a breezy, chilly day, a high of just 50 degrees and sunny skies. Wednesday, below freezing at 29 to start, then 53 and partly cloudy. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
News, analysis, opinion.
They're mad at inflation, crime. They're mad at gas prices and the border with fentanyl rushing across it.
101.9 and 94.1.
Vote!
The midterms were first Tuesday in November.
News Talk STL.
Hey, this is Chris Arps here telling you about my good friends over at the Dental Link, which is a state-of-the-art facility offering a full range of dental services, including cosmetic and implant dentistry. You know, it's getting very close to the holidays, and a lot of times people want to lose weight, or maybe if you're losing a couple of teeth or one or two teeth, maybe you want to get those fixed. Well, you can go to the Dental Link. If you suffer from loose dentures or missing one or more teeth, many dental implants might be the solution for you. Many dental implants are less invasive, less painful, and your recovery time is much shorter. Plus, best of all, the cost to you is much less than with older, more traditional dental implants. 2 convenient locations in Baldwin and Melville. Call the Dental Link today at 314-794-6464. That's 314-794-6464. TheDentalLink.com.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
Mark Harder, county councilman for St. Louis County.
Did you have a mullet, Mark?
Oh.
You know, actually, I did used to grow a little bit longer in the back.
Okay, before we get into the serious stuff, I went to that metal concert with the 80s metal bands. In between the sets, I was mullet hunting with my camera and sending my wife pictures of some of the best mullets.
You know they're coming back.
That's what I've heard. We need to put a stop to that.
Yeah, please.
Weekday mornings, 5:30 till 9 on News Talk STL.
Start a podcast for your business today with Epic STL Podcasts. Engage existing and potential customers, build trust in your brand, and drive traffic to your business. Log on to newstalkstl.com and click on the Epic STL Podcast button to learn more.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
Screwing over workers in the name of protecting workers from being exploited. That's how the Biden administration rolls. I'll explain on Tuesday.
Mornings starting at 5:30 on News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Look, the economy is so tough for so many people. Food prices, rent, spiking. If they've got retirement funds, those are evaporating. And even the issue of abortion, which did drive several special elections and that remarkable referendum result in Kansas. While there are millions of people for whom that will be the number one issue, I just think the economic headwinds are so tough. And Biden he just doesn't have the oomph as a candidate anymore. People don't really want him around, and he can't really make his case that I don't think the Democrats are in any better place. And I would also say, in this country and in other countries, polls are broken, right? It is clear that lots of people on the right just don't answer anymore. They were worse in 2020 than they were in 2016. And so you look at those polls, it's close. If it's close, it's a Republican win.
Interesting stuff there from Terry Moran, Chris, on the ABC Powerhouse Roundtable this past weekend, saying what a lot of people on both sides of the aisle are saying, and there's some brand new polling out that we can go through later on that is really good news for Republicans, not so good news for Democrats. So many things costing so much more. And people are feeling it, definitely in the pocketbook.
Yeah, and we're going to get into it later in the show. The New York Times Siena College National Survey is not good news for the Democrat. 49% of voters say now they want a Republican in Congress. 45% for the Democrats. Usually Democrats lead in a survey like that. And there's some other ominous things in here that we'll get into as well.
One of the biggest cost drivers that everyone has to deal with, whether we're talking government spending or people's personal spending, has to do with healthcare. Healthcare is usually one of those topics that's in the top 5 or so every election cycle. And we had a reminder of the importance of healthcare that happened over the weekend, in case you have missed it. And I bet this guy's phone's been ringing off the hook this morning. Michael Butts from the MB Health Insurance Agency joining us today to talk about all sorts of things, including the fact that, Michael, Medicare open enrollment started on Saturday when everybody was running around cutting the lawn for the last time or running the kids to sporting events.
Correct.
Tell us about that. What is open enrollment for someone who's maybe just turned a certain age or is maybe not had to enroll before? What's the high level? Then we can drill down in some specifics. But what's the high level people need to know about open enrollment?
I'd say with open enrollment, it just means you now get to re-choose any plan, any option that's available in the marketplace. You can choose from regardless of your medical history, regardless of your economics. It's just an open menu. So you can choose every single one. So the trick of the open enrollment, the hard part, is it's a look forward. So almost everybody that we make contact say, look, my plan's working great for me. And I'm like, well, that's great. That was past year. You have to see what's coming next year. So you have to look forward. So, and a misnomer real quick on the open enrollment, it does not mean your plan is necessarily, very rarely is a plan canceled. So you're not going to be without coverage. It's the question, is there another plan that would do you better?
Interesting.
Mike, my mother was on Medicare, and this time every year she would look at different plans and everything, and I helped her with some of it, but mostly she did it herself. Is there a lot of difference in the different Medicare, especially the Advantage plans, I guess? Is there a lot of difference in those plans, or are they pretty much all the same?
No, there's the differences occur on a year-by-year basis, and it's just incrementally as we go along. I would say just in the last 3 years, the one coming up for 2023 on the Medicare Advantage side are the greatest changes, the greatest amount of changes. There's more options than there had been in the last couple, 3 years. So it just kind of, it's where the market's going. So every year, there's an old science saying that says for every action's a reaction. Well, as the COVID time, all that action's causing reactions. And so where populations are going, where enrollments are going, what people are choosing making the carriers change. There's a reaction. And so you have to see what those reactions are. So it can. Okay. But the big difference, even what you're alluding to, so there's really only 2 worlds where you can have your Medicare coverage. You're going to be in regular Medicare or you're going to be in an Advantage plan. And those 2 worlds don't touch. So that's as far from the left to the right as it can be. No political pun intended on that. I'm just saying the east to the west, to the north to the south, whatever you want to say. So that's where that can get a little confusing.
Okay.
Speaking to Michael Butts of MB Health Insurance Agency, and folks, if the voice is familiar, that's because he's an advertiser here on News Talk STL. And Mike, we want to thank you very much for that, for supporting an independently, run local radio station. We appreciate that very much. What about? I notice as well on the information we have about you that you also work with small business group insurance, and as I mentioned. Insurance, especially health insurance, is probably one of the biggest overhead cost drivers for a small business group. And, Obamacare was supposed to fix all these things, maybe a different discussion for a different day. It's provided some new vehicles, but what's out there for small businesses? What if a lot of people just started small businesses in the last couple of years? We've heard that quite a bit. So what can you tell about the world of small business health insurance?
All the options of small business are pretty much the same. I mean, they're What was available is still available, and it's still good. The great challenge to a small business owner, because I would be a small business owner, we have about 10 to 12 employees, so it's just balancing this notion to my P&L. Do I spend money on benefits, or do I let people just have their enrollments on Obamacare? So it's a real debate. It's a real struggle. So Obamacare's got different opinions across the board, good, bad, or indifferent. It's here to stay. And the key issues, the issues on the Obamacare is really the economic level, the income level of your employees. If you would be an employer that has an employee base of higher incomes, you're going to want to do a benefit plan.
Okay.
Because then the Obamacare doesn't look as attractive because our government won't pay the premiums.
Mm-hmm.
But when if you have an employee base with lower incomes, then the Obamacare would be attractive. Now, where's that action and reaction?
Mm-hmm.
What's just happened in the last 12 months to incomes? They've all been inflated. So now might be an exaggerated phrase, but I'm saying this, now minimum wages are up to $15 an hour and growing, and to average the small employer to hire somebody at $20 an hour is a commonplace. Well, now Obamacare is not looking so great. So now so it's a real back and forth on that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a real business planning conversation you need to have.
And you advise if
totally,
if
you
people
got to
are
walk
interested,
through.
they
It's
can
a
call
P&L.
you.
It's a P&L issue. It's a business planning issue. How do we survive this? Where do we go with it? But if you have to do it, the small group options are very affordable. They're very, in relative terms, they're much more affordable than straight Obamacare coverages.
Excellent.
Michael, before we had you on, I was talking about my good friends over at the Dental Link and dental implants, which Dr. Alan Link has specialized in, the mini dental implants, how they are much more affordable now, and I talk about that. And you mentioned that mini dental implants are now included in Medicare now. Talk about that.
In the areas you said, are there differences in Medicare Advantage plans? The number one area where they're all competing is in adding dental benefits.
Okay.
There's even a carrier starting next year that will cover up to $20,000 of implant coverage.
Wow.
Now, it's a particular network, so you got to find the rate. So I don't know if your advertiser was that person or it's in that plan, but dental benefits, the whole concept of Medicare Advantage plans is the holistic treatment to the person. For our seniors, and I'm just going to use seniors as a broad stroke. So anybody in their 70s, 80s, and their 90s or above, visiting your dentist is real important. It's a real important part of your general wellness care.
Sure.
And many seniors say, I don't want to spend, I don't want to pay for it. It's difficult to get to. So these Advantage plans are really falling over themselves, adding greater and greater dental benefits.
Good.
Including up to the implant coverage. Why? What's the action and reaction? My father, so you've talked to him before, lived about 8 months of his life with half his mouth gone because his bridge broke. And he's like, why would I spend $8,000 when I think my mortality's at play? But that's bad for his health. He's not eating right. He's not getting nutrition right. And so the plans have loaded these dental benefits into those plans.
Mike, remind us, what age do people qualify for Medicare?
Well, 65, when I turned the first of the month of my 65th birthday, or if I happen to be a person before 65 who's on disability.
Okay.
If I qualify for Social Security disability, then I go into the Medicare plan.
And what if you turn 65 and you're not in an open enrollment period? What happens? What happens at that point?
You get a mini called a special enrollment period. You get an open enrollment period for you at that moment.
Okay, I see. And what is Medicare Part D? We hear about that
That's
a lot.
the prescription drug coverage.
Okay.
And that's the key area where you got to really review. Of all the areas. So back to your Medicare, if you're in the Medicare Advantage world, Part D is included. It's just included. You don't, but you want to check the other Medicare Advantage plans. But the carriers really compete on the prescription drug coverage, and they're enhancing that as best they can. You got to see. Do I change pharmacies? I've been using. Can I use names? I don't know.
You may.
If I'm at Walgreens and CVS can save me $400 just by going across the street, is it worth $400? Well, one plan may save you $400 in making that change. So you really want to change. They changed their formulary, which is the levels of coverage. The different co-pays for prescriptions, what prescription they cover. All that definitely changes every 12 months.
Mike, most people think that Obamacare is pretty much on the shelf, with not much happening with it. Is Obamacare still in effect, and how many people are using it? Is it effective?
Yeah, it's extremely effective, and I'm just, I'll have a intellectual debate on that anytime you wish. It's not going anywhere, and it's going to grow, and it's going to become with it. It's a huge thing. The number one thing that the insurance industry did not do, I'm just calling it out. This is my personal thought. So, but they didn't do.
We give a lot of those here. Google
the
right ahead.
whole notion of pre-existing conditions. The insurance industry absolutely could have eradicated it. Could have fixed that. Government came in and said, "We'll fix it." So they took over the whole system and they did away with the pre-existing conditions. That is the number one thing, bar none. About every third call, someone's got advanced diabetes, they've got Crohn's disease, they've got multiple sclerosis, whatever the condition is. Under the Obamacare system, that's irrelevant. Doesn't mean anything. You just got to check where your doctors are and where they participate.
Mm-hmm. We're speaking to Michael Butts of MB Health Insurance Agency. You can find him on the web, and boy, is he a wealth of information, so you probably do want to find him at mbhealth.com. That's mbhealth.com. Mike, the time always goes too fast. Any parting words for our audience? Like, if there's something you'd like to tell people about Obamacare products, about small business products, about Medicare.
Obamacare is directly related to your income, is what your cost is really going to be. Medicare, if you've got a friend or a family, just go to medicare.gov. The information's all there. How do you find it is a little bit of a trick. We'll be happy to walk you through it, but anybody can find that. That's just public knowledge. What I'm sharing is just public knowledge. You find it at medicare.gov, or the healthcare.gov for Obamacare is very complicated in my opinion. You should use a personal talk for that.
Okay. Well,
excellent.
You're a wealth of information in this world. I learned a lot today. We want to thank you so much for supporting the station and for coming in today and sharing all your knowledge and expertise with our listeners.
Available as you need.
Thank you very much. He's at mbhealth.com. That's Michael Butts, mbhealth.com. We'll be back with former Missouri U.S. Senator Jim Talent, the Chris's Corner, and more here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 1019, 94.1 News Talk STL.
It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
That's it.
Welcome home to St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
As far as Joe Biden, everything he touches turns into a disaster.
Let me start off with 2 words.
News, analysis, and opinion.
The Saudis need to come to their senses. Russia knows that nuclear war cannot be won.
The 2022 midterm elections.
Blowout year for Republicans.
We cannot afford to lose.
It's insane.
1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Welcome home.
If you believe Brandon and the supply chain issues are still in crisis, or even if you don't, hurry into Southern Armory, your Second Amendment headquarters, for the best selection of firearms, suppressors, holsters, ammunition, pepper spray, and knives. Browse through our constantly changing inventory, order something special, or have us repair or modify that firearm that you've been putting off. Try our firearms training simulator. See the demo video on our website. Come into Southern Armory, 9901 Watson Road, 1 mile east of 270 and 44, and southernarmory.com. That's southernarmory.com.
Somewhere around 400 feet off the ground, RPG came through the belly of the aircraft. When I first got out, I felt like my whole life had been smushed down to just medical appointments. I was going to occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy. We don't talk about the female combat wounded. These are our daughters and our sisters and our mothers. I'm not sure I would still be here if I didn't find the Friends and Wounded Warrior Project. There was a long period after the injury where I really didn't understand why I was still here. I felt like I had lost everything. Wounded Warrior Project came into my life and taught me how to stand back up and get back in the fight. The truth is, I think we all have this strength inside of us, but until you're tested, you just don't know it's there.
See how Wounded Warrior Project empowers women veterans like Beth by visiting woundedwarriorproject.org/empowerwomenvets.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefontaine, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. A new poll finds voters are motivated to turn out for the midterm elections, even though they're dissatisfied with the state of the nation and U.S. politics. correspondent Jennifer King reports.
A new poll from the Associated Press and the Nork Center for Public Affairs Research finds 71% of voters think the future of the country is at stake when they vote this November. While about 2/3 of registered voters say they're pessimistic about politics, 8 in 10 say that whatever party they support, casting their ballot this year is extremely or very important. Voters have grown more negative since the last midterm. 70% say they're dissatisfied with the way things are going, up from 58% in October of 2018. Jennifer King, Washington.
The GOP is suing Pennsylvania in a renewed effort to block some mail-in ballots. White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports.
The state and national Republican parties want to keep mail-in ballots, which lack the voter's handwritten date on the outside envelope, from being counted in the November election. The GOP's filing went straight to Pennsylvania's Supreme Court, with barely 3 weeks before Election Day, when Pennsylvania's voters will elect a new governor and U.S. senator. The legal fight has already reached both the U.S. Supreme Court and the state Supreme Court. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Striking truckers used tractor-trailers to block the exits at New England's largest wholesale food distributor Monday and prevented some employees from leaving, resulting in as many as 20 arrests, according to police. More than 400 Teamster Union members arrived at the Cisco facility in Plimpton, Massachusetts in the early morning and stopped about 100 employees from leaving. A good day on Wall Street as the Dow was up by 551 points, the Nasdaq rose 354, the S&P advanced 94, oil down to 85.46 a barrel. More on these stories at townhall.com.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month, a savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance. For your free quote, call SelectQuote at 1-800-940-6161. That's 1-800-940-6161. Or go to SelectQuote.com. That's 1-800-940-6161. SelectQuote. We shop. You save. Full details on example policies at SelectQuote.com/commercials.
The Gates Foundation.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by Mucinex DM. Not all coughs are the same. Buy Mucinex DM to get cough and chest congestion relief for 3 times longer than your typical 4-hour cough and congestion medicines. With Mucinex DM, it's not cold and flu season, it's always comeback season. Relief with Mucinex DM, and nothing lasts longer. Traffic moving again on westbound 70 at Zumbel. You're bunched up westbound 70 between 4064 and Wentzville Parkway. Heavy southbound 55 from 44 to Potomac, westbound 64 downtown to 270 is 14 minutes. Southbound 270 McDonald to 55, 25 minutes. 24 minutes westbound 44 270 out to Union, and a crash north and southbound Telegraph at Maycrest just north of Herb. I'm Tori Lyons from the News Talk STL Traffic Center.
From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The first widespread freeze of the season tonight. A low of 29, a little colder in outlying areas, so this is a hard freeze. Want to bring in those potted plants and consider undoing the hoses from the outdoor bibs too before you head to bed tonight. Otherwise, just a breezy, chilly day, a high of just 50 degrees and sunny skies. Wednesday below freezing at 29 to start, then 53 and partly cloudy. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by All Solutions Pest Control, 636-486-7888, or visit them at allsolutionspestcontrol.com.
If a pest-free home is your goal, call All Solutions Pest Control.
Hi, this is David with House Sold Easy, and I buy houses cash. If you own a house and you want to sell it fast at a fair price, call me at 314-293-3000. I pay cash and close in as little as 3 days. I buy houses in any condition, any price range, and any location in St. Louis. I'm a private real estate investor who buys several houses a month, and I want to buy more. I buy inherited houses,
divorce houses, behind in payment houses. I even buy my tenant won't pay me the rent houses. Do you own a house that is trashed and needs thousands of dollars in repairs? Great, because I love buying junk houses. I buy vacant houses, abandoned houses, condemned houses, and foreclosure houses. If you own a house and you want to sell it fast, call me at 314-293-3000. That's 314-293-3000. 314-293-3000.
The news and talk that affects St. Louis.
Raised interest rate by 0.75 percentage point.
Nothing short of bad. Vladimir Putin threatened not to ease tensions, but to escalate them through the threat of nuclear weapons.
This is 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
Lime dog-faced pony shoulder. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
I want to remind you that she has vetoed more bills than any governor in the last 70 years. So when she has sat up here and talked about her bipartisan willingness to work with people, do not be deceived. This is a woman who shut down the state and had to have her powers removed by the Supreme Court.
And welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show here on a Monday, October the 17th, 2022. 7 minutes after the hour here, Central Daylight Time. Don't have a lot of daylight left these days, do we, Chris Arps?
No, I've got where I live right next door to a golf course.
Oh.
And I have discovered just a beautiful thing. It's right along the first hole.
Uh-huh.
And it's the woods right along. And there's a nature trail. Tim, I'm not lying. I get 10, 15, 20 balls a day. I go out there every day collecting balls that are in the woods that people have given up on. I've collected like 120 balls in like 3 weeks. It's crazy.
I'll buy all the Pro V1s from you.
Seriously. Becky has characterized them. She put them in 2 egg cartons. One of them are like all one brand. That they were one particular brand. I won't say what it is, but yeah, I've got different colors.
If you got Titleist or Callaways, I'll buy those from you.
I have Callaways.
I bet you do.
Different colors: green,
That's
red,
hilarious.
yellow. It's beautiful. I'm like, wow, I've been here 11 years. I should have learned this 11 years ago. I was like, I'm never going to have to buy a golf ball ever again.
You never will. Rest of your life, that's for sure. Chris, that was Tudor Dixon we played coming in, and you made a point last week as we're talking about U.S. Senate races and U.S. House races. You brought up, hey, don't forget about the governor races, the gubernatorial races. And so I paid specific attention to those over the weekend, and we've got some incredible news coming out of New York State with Lee Zeldin within the margin of error. We've got even wilder news coming out of Oregon. With a three-way race there because
she's looking to win. They're pretty much picking her to win that, or the person to win that.
Usually Republicans get screwed when there's a third party on the ballot. Apparently not in Oregon because I guess the independents polling from mainly more the Democratic side. I don't know. But the Republican, as you said, is currently picked to win. We'll see what that happens there. And in this race, Chris, Whitmer is now starting to fall in the polls, or maybe Tudor Dixon's gaining. The latest Michigan governor poll that I've seen shows the race is within 4 points, 48 to 44. I imagine all of these issues we've been talking about for the last 6, 8, 12 months, crime, inflation, the border, they're starting to resonate with voters.
And that's been the issue in Oregon that has really moved that race and going to have Oregon have a governor for the first time, and I think in like 40 years. Crime has skyrocketed since the George Floyd incident. They've opened up Oregon. A lot of the cities have become basically homeless camps with open-air drug markets and people using drugs. Shootings and murders are up 1,000% in some cases, and that's what's moving that race. And another governor's race, Tim, we talked about last week was the New Mexico governor's race. The incumbent there is in big trouble. She is the one that I told you that grabbed the crotch of the of the gay staffer and asked him, is there anything down there? The state has ended up paying this gentleman $150,000 payoff. That's just now really coming to light nationally. It's been something there, so it's starting to, affect that race. Can you imagine a Republican, female or male, doing something like that, and we're just now hearing about it a year later?
It would have come out about 11 months before now, and it would have been career ending. Yeah. Period. The end. It really would have indeed. Chris, I had to look this up, so I didn't know it either. Do you know what Oregon is, like as in the what state? As we're the show me state. Do you know what Oregon is? You want to take a wild guess?
Is it a spice?
No, I'll give you a hint.
Oregano?
I didn't know it either. It's an animal. It's an animal.
I can't even. Beaver?
You got it!
Okay. Isn't that their football team, though? Aren't they Oregon Beavers?
Well, no, they're the Ducks.
The Ducks, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that was a straight guess.
Yeah, I bet you there's got to be probably some schools in Oregon that have the beaver as their mascot, I would imagine.
Oh, the college jokes there. But we
can you imagine? Can you imagine? What was that in Top Gun? Naked Gun.
Oh.
Naked Gun, where he's like, never mind. I can't even say it. I don't know if I can say it.
They're talking about Animal House.
Double entendre. Yeah, that too.
Might be a triple entendre.
That's right. That's the voice of Stel Ponticus there. Stel, we've been so busy kicking off the show here on a Monday, as Manic Monday. Forgot to say hello to you. How you doing today? Everything okay?
I'm doing great. Yep.
Everything all right?
Doing fine. Glad to be with you guys, and I'm just trying to make sure that we're all doing okay.
Got your Katie training wheels off.
Pretty much.
Don't look to Chris and I, though. We won't catch you.
All right.
Yeah. It's great to have you here, Stel.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Oregon is the beaver state.
I did not know that.
Yeah, the beaver state. I didn't know that either. I had to look it up. Yeah, Chris, that's really remarkable. So the Lee Zeldin, the New York race really is interesting to me because I lived there for 10 years, and the last time we had a Republican governor in New York was when I lived there back in the 90s, and that was George Pataki.
Oh my!
So George Pataki was the last Republican governor, and since then they've fallen off the end of the world on the left-hand side of the sphere. And I don't think it's because yes, I'm sure that the liberals in New York have become more leftist driven, but a lot of people have left New York. A lot of people who probably would vote Republican, or independents who would vote Republican. New York alone, throughout the COVID pandemic, the last 2 years, I saw a stat the other day, they've lost over 500,000 people. Yeah. Eventually that starts affecting voter patterns. So it's amazing to me that Lee Zeldin, who was behind 30 points in August, is now brought this race to within 4 or 5. Chris, many are arguing it's the incident that, unfortunately, a horrifying incident that happened at his home.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned George Pataki, great Greek politician there still. I saw you kind of smile there a little bit. I wonder what he's doing now. But anyway.
I'm thinking of him and Dukakis.
And Dukakis, exactly. Yeah. Hey, but I think the one thing, and I'm sure Lee Zeldin, this is the last thing in the world he would ever want happen to him. But he has made crime a centerpiece of his campaign. And I'm sorry, it didn't hurt his campaign that someone tried to stab him at a campaign rally. And it didn't hurt his campaign that there was a shooting by his house a couple of weeks ago where his young daughters were at the kitchen table studying and had to go into the bathroom and scurry for cover. That helping his campaign really highlight that it doesn't matter where you live. I mean, I'm sure Lee Zeldin doesn't live in the hood or in the slums or a bad neighborhood.
He lives in Suffolk County.
Exactly.
That's where all the fancy pants people are.
So to have someone shooting near your house, I mean, that just illustrates it big time. This has been a big gain for him, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where the Martha's Vineyard of Long Island is, out there in it's slipping my mind. What do they call that area out there? Ooh, it's at the tip of the island. I'll think of it in a second. Mm-hmm. And you know what else is out there in Suffolk? So Suffolk County, Chris, would be kind of like our Franklin County. It gets very rural very fast. Mm-hmm. And there's some it's on the water. So of course there's some really nice areas, and there's the Sound, the Long Island Sound and all that. And there's vineyards and all that stuff. But there's a lot of blue collar people and workers because that's where they can afford to live.
Yeah.
And so it's a real mixed bag. But Chris, I know you believe a lot, as I do, in destiny and the good Lord above every once in a while giving us a sign. I mean, think about this, Chris. Here's the guy who's trying to take out the Democratic governor in New York, of all places. And in the last 2 weeks, the guy himself has nearly been the victim of crime twice. It's almost like the good Lord saying, Everybody in New York, this guy right here, I mean, he almost got stabbed, and then his house almost got shot up. It's almost like there's a spotlight saying, this guy is the one you need to vote for. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's a spotlight on him, but I also think it also shows that God's hedge of protection is around him and his family as well. For him to, he was almost stabbed at that campaign rally. He grabbed the guy's arm that was about to stab him, and then people rushed on stage and grabbed the guy. And then this situation, random bullets flying around his house while his daughters are there, and he's not even at home to protect them. He's out, in another part of the city. So, yeah, I mean, you hate to have unfortunate things and make them a positive in a sense in politics. It sounds kind of crass, but I mean, in this sense, it's highlighted his key campaign issue, one of them, which is crime.
Were you trying to think of the Hamptons?
The Hamptons, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes. So the Hamptons, thank you, Stel. The Hamptons on Long Island are like Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts, right? Martha's Vineyard is it off the coast of Massachusetts?
Yes.
Yeah. So the Hamptons are like this, like it's an area. It's like an area of Suffolk County that's got. Back in the day, in the 40s and 50s, it was just a bunch of beach bungalows. Yeah. It was a bunch of little, places people went to on the weekends. And then they started building the McMansions out there. And so the Hamptons is like the Martha's Vineyard of New York.
That's where the New York jet set crowd goes and vacations in the summer or goes to their summer homes in the Hamptons.
That is correct. You go out there to the Hamptons to cool off in the summertime from the heat of the urban jungle.
I think Bill and Hillary got a crib out in the Hamptons.
I wouldn't doubt it. Funny story. One of my best friends from law school, Ed Kiss, is a resident of New York in an area called Pound Ridge, and it's right on the border of Pound Ridge is on the border of New York and Connecticut. And Ed's father was a Hungarian immigrant, came over to this country. He passed away a number of years ago. He came over a long time ago, and he was a builder. And so he bought a piece of property in Pound Ridge. And back then, it was very nice, but we're talking 60, 70 years ago.
Sure.
And he was a builder, so he built this house with his own hands and all that. Anyway, fast forward 70 years, it's one of the fanciest areas just outside of Manhattan. And Ed's mom still lives there, but he took me on a tour. I was up there a long time ago. He showed me the house where Bill and Hillary live in Chappaqua, right? Chappaqua, New York.
Right.
It's right down the road from where they live. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So there they are. There they are, the old Arkansasites, they're up there in Chappaqua now.
Speaking of the rich and famous and jet set, and Stell sent this out to us earlier, and I had read a email on it. What do you think about Kanye or Ye buying Parler?
Interesting move, because I got to be honest with you, I had kind of forgotten about Parler because I was having trouble. Remember how it was up? And then it was down, and then they brought it back again. Well, I had signed up for it the first time around, and when it came back, I could not get back on using. It wouldn't let me log in, and so I honestly kind of gave up on it and went to Getter and Truth Social and back to Twitter. So I think it's an interesting move by Kanye. I guess maybe he wants to have his own Truth Social, so to speak. I don't know what's he going to do with it.
Is Bongino still involved with Parler? I know that he was one of their early investors.
I don't know. He never talks about it anymore. I haven't heard Bongino bring up Parler in a long time. Yeah. So I'm not sure what happened to Parler. It was supposed to be the next big thing, and then it kind of fell off the radar.
Well, Amazon took away their ability to be on the internet, their servers. And so no one else could handle what would give them server capabilities. And then eventually someone else did. They did find someone to be their host server, I guess, whatever. And they got back online. But that was the big thing that disrupted them. Amazon, whatever they call their web services thing, just cut them off.
Did it not revolve around the Hunter Biden laptop, or was that a separate issue? Maybe
I'm not
it was
sure.
a separate issue.
So
I think they were trying to say that Parler didn't have sufficient mechanisms in place to stop hate speech and all of that stuff. So that's why they got rid of them.
So maybe I shouldn't speak so fast, because I just went to Parler.com and they have a very nice website. I haven't looked at this in months, and they give you a sample of the feed currently right now, what's happening right now on Parler. And Candace Owens is on here, and Seth Dillon of the Babylon Bee is on here. Mark Levin is on here. Dinesh D'Souza is on here. Colonel Alan West is on here. Elise Stefanik, the Congresswoman. There's quite a Cheryl Atkinson. So there you go. There's some interesting folks who are posting
That's a good
right
lineup.
now on Parler. So the problem is, as Jeff Allen always says, choice kills. And now you've got Twitter and Facebook and Parler and Getter and Truth Social and Instagram and TikTok. It's like and Gab.
Yeah.
It's very diffuse now. Kind of depends on who you want to talk to, I guess.
And you've only got so many hours in the day to post stuff.
You're telling me.
Golly.
So, there you have it. All right. It is 4:20, nearly 4:21 in the PM. Chris, we've got one of our favorite guests of the week. It's so great to always kick off a Monday with him. Former U.S. Senator Jim Talent will be joining us next, followed by Chris's Corner at 4:42. Do you have a thought on that, or are you still thinking? Okay, very good. We will talk to Jim Talent. He always has a lot of thoughts. We'll ask the senator about what's going on between Russia and Ukraine, our border, national security in general, and more when we return on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show here at 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
Dropping truth bombs and making you think. It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The first widespread freeze of the season tonight. A low of 29, a little colder in outlying areas, so this is a hard freeze. Want to bring in those potted plants and consider undoing the hoses from the outdoor bibs, too, before you head to bed tonight. Otherwise, just a breezy, chilly day, a high of just 50 degrees and sunny skies. Wednesday, below freezing at 29 to start, then 53 and partly cloudy. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by Mucinex DM. Not all coughs are the same. Buy Mucinex DM to get cough and chest congestion relief for 3 times longer than your typical 4-hour cough and congestion medicines. With Mucinex DM, it's not cold and flu season, it's always comeback season. Relief with Mucinex DM, and nothing lasts longer. Use as directed. Stop and go southbound 55 between Lafayette and Potomac. That crash north and southbound Telegraph at Maycrest, just north of Herb. It looks like they did reopen all lanes. It was closed for a short time. Westbound 44 downtown out to 270 is 13 minutes. Slow westbound 64 Hampton to McCausland, Lindbergh to 270, and again Clarkson Olive to Boone's Crossing. Westbound 4064 backs up 364 to I-70. Crowded eastbound 64 170 to Big Bend. I'm Tori Lyons from the News Talk STL Traffic Center.
Got some news for you.
When it's important to you,
Complex and uncertain world.
it's on News Talk STL.
40-year high inflation.
Really bad message for Democrats.
Hurting the American people.
We're going to react to Saudi Arabia.
The Saudis need to come to their senses.
Russia knows that nuclear war cannot be won.
Make sure that Ukraine can continue to succeed on the battlefield.
Continue economic support.
We're going to win big on Election Day.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. News, analysis, and opinion.
Hey folks, Tim Jones here for the Wallner home selling team at Berkshire Hathaway. Maybe you had that conversation over the weekend that ended in, yes, it's time to sell our home. If that did happen, I want you to call Rodney and Jen Wallner right now at 314-810-SOLD. Why should you do that? Well, for a number of reasons. First of all, they're going to offer you a very flexible commission plan that you can have tailored to your family specific needs. They don't have just one boilerplate model that you are forced to use. That will come with a no obligation, no long-term commitment clause. If you're not happy, you can walk away anytime, but I know you will have the opposite experience. You'll have an incredible experience when you call Rodney and Jen Walter right now at 314-810-SOLD. That is because they have so many approved home buyers, they'll guarantee to obtain you an offer. They're doing that because they sell 15 times more homes per year, 15 times than your typical realtor. Husband and wife team, if you haven't guessed by now, you get a unique family perspective when selling your home, not just that of one agent when you call Rodney and Jen at 314-810-SOLD. Call them today. Call the Wallner Home Selling Team, Rodney and Jen Wallner, for a free listing consultation. Sell your home with this top-producing team, 314-810-SOLD. That's 314-810-SOLD.
Have you been floored?
Not until you've gone to Michael's Flooring Outlet. They've been a locally owned and operated family business for more than 28 years. You want variety? Michael's has carpet, hardwood, laminate, ceramic tile, luxury vinyl, natural stone, and many other options. Save money and get quality at Michael's. Plus, your installation will be done right the first time when you hire the experts at Michael's. You can shop in store at one of their 3 convenient locations or shop from home. Check out everything that Michael's has to offer at igotfloored.com.
If you're concerned about the current market and the 40-year record high inflation that we're seeing, you're not alone.
Credit card usage skyrocketing and at record highs, savings rates plunging. It's 100% certainty that you're in recession now.
The good news is, for decades, Steve All and his team have been helping people just like you protect and grow your income. And most importantly, not run out of money.
My clients that are currently sitting there on guaranteed incomes, they're not really worried about what's happening in the market. So they're more at peace because every month that paycheck comes in.
Call Steve today for your customized market protection plan. 636-230-8824. That's 636-230-8824. Or visit yourmoneymattersstl.com. Investment advisory services offered through Retirement Wealth Advisors, LLC. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance products, including annuities. Licensed in Missouri and Illinois.
Fox News commentary.
Nancy Pelosi threatened to punch out our former president, proving once again the left is fine with political violence so long as they're inflicting it. I'm Tommy Lahren. More next.
Hi, I'm Lisa Booth for Bishop Gold Group. Are you worried about your financial future as retirement gets closer? All over the country, soon-to-be retirees are fearing for their financial future as markets remain volatile. Bishop Gold Group helps you invest in gold and gold IRAs to protect your wealth and retirement during times of high inflation and wild swings in the market. Secure your future today. Contact Bishop Gold Group by dialing pound 250 from a mobile phone and say the keyword Bishop Gold, or visit bishopgoldgroup.com.
Previously unseen video that aired on CNN late last week, Speaker Pelosi can be heard threatening to punch Donald Trump out if he approached the Capitol on January 6th. But that's not all. She also said she's been waiting for this and that she'd punch him, go to jail, and be happy about it. Boy, for all the grief Donald Trump got for not being presidential, I'm going to go ahead and say relishing the thought of punching out a sitting president isn't very congressional, Nancy. But are the Democrats at all condemning her threat of violence? No, of course not. They're applauding it as valiant and brave. They whine and cry January 6th to their blue in the face, but somehow when it comes to the countless examples of violence against conservatives, they're dead silent or cheering it. So next time a Democrat wants to yammer on about the horror of January 6th, remind them how little they actually care about public and political decency. I'm Tommy Lahren.
Subscribe and watch your favorite News Talk STL shows.
Mike Ferguson in the morning, The Vic Porcelli Show, Columbo and Katie, Jones and Arps.
Webcam streaming on Facebook, Twitter, Rumble.
Subscribe and watch
News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
We still see the impact of COVID in China and the slowdown in Chinese growth. And with high inflation and tightening monetary policy in many advanced countries, emerging markets from really all of these factors are suffering many stresses. So there's a lot to talk about. But from the perspective of the United States, I think the United States is doing very well.
Well, Chris, she's one of the only people on the planet. Well, I guess everybody in the Biden administration thinks America's doing great, but if you look at all the polls and the polling that we've been discussing for weeks, not many people agree with them.
Well, over the weekend, Tim, the president of the United States, said while eating an ice cream cone that, quote, "Our economy is strong as hell." So, that seems to be the line from the administration. Everything is coming up roses.
Come on, man. Yeah. Let's bring in our next guest, see what he has to say about that and lots more.
Former U.S. Senator Jim Talent and chairman of the Reagan Institute.
Jim, you got the tux all pressed and ready to go up there on the Upper East Side.
I'm watching this and just wondering, who's running the show.
The political logic behind it escapes me, and I've stopped looking for three-dimensional chess. I just think they don't know what they're doing.
And now, former Senator Jim Talent.
As he does every Monday afternoon, former U.S. Senator Jim Talent, the chair of the Reagan Institute, joins us once again. He's at Jim Talent on Twitter. Senator, good afternoon. Thanks for joining Chris and I here again today.
Well, it's always good to be with you two.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So, I said that without my tongue in cheek at all.
Without pause. Without pause either.
You approved that message.
Yes,
Thank
he
you.
did. Yes, he did. Senator, you heard, hopefully you heard Madam Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen there. She basically said, well, we've got all these issues that we've been through all these issues with the COVID pandemic. We've got all these issues with China and other international adversaries, but we're just doing just fine here in the good old United States of America. I guess that's what the Democrats need people to try and believe with 3 weeks left to the midterms. But if you look at the polls, Senator, I don't know that the message is being well received.
Was she eating ice cream? She said that
maybe that keeps them on that sugar high. Yeah.
Fellas, I emailed a couple of my old campaign staffers and asked them who in PR or political campaigning could possibly have set up that visual.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, eating ice cream, it's bad. It would have been a bad visual even if he hadn't said the economy. What did he say? It was strong as hell?
Strong as hell.
I mean, people want the president to be serious when the problems are as serious as the ones we're facing. And they're just in complete denial. And I'm going to tell you, there's no real good political strategy when things are this bad and you're responsible for it. You own it. But the worst one is to act like there's no problems, because then people just think you're not listening. You're completely out of touch. And I've been saying for, a year and a half, I was pretty certain what they were going to do. So these recent polls don't surprise me. They're going to send a signal. And it's just not going to be very good for the Democrats.
Well, you guys have just about given my Chris's Corner today. Not only was that a bad visual with that picture of the President of the United States with an ice cream cone saying the economy was great, but the fact that we're hurting, inflation is high, he's saying this while wearing a $200 pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses, having two $10 bills while it's looking like it's costing $20 to pay for that ice cream cone. Just a horrible, horrible visual.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, and I hate to react like old politician, but that's really what I am, and I just wouldn't be caught dead doing that. And what was that cone? What do they call that again? A funnel
waffle cone?
Is that what that is?
Waffle cone.
Huge amount. I guess it looked like chocolate mint ice cream. That's pretty good ice cream. I give you that. But I mean, I know that years ago, I think when he was vice president, they showed him with aviator glasses eating ice cream, and I guess they felt that was so good they were just going to try and recreate that scene. But it was just terrible. And I read stories where they're talking to independent voters, and this one woman says, I'm trying to figure out how to get enough money to get to my cancer treatments. In other words, to be able to afford the gasoline to get there. Mm. And that's what people are really going through now. And I said the Democrats own it. I mean, the legislation that they passed that helicoptered in all this money into the system, at the same time as we were trying to recover from supply chain disruptions. And then the additional regulations. He's regulated more in a year and a half than Obama did in that period of time. So you have too much money chasing too few goods. And you know what that is? That's inflation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what we got.
That's what we've got.
Plus the crime, plus, the education issues of schools closed. The ACT scores are now the lowest in 40 years. Well, gee, the kids lost a year and a half of education. Maybe they're not as enthusiastic about learning now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's pretty bad.
And Senator, on top of all of that, there has been renewed pressure by Senator Chuck Grassley, who has been, I'll tell you what, like a dog on a bone, trying to uncover what has been going on with the Biden family, all of the different members of that family, and foreign actors. I mean, when Donald Trump was president, there was a suggestion that the Trump empire was looking potentially at possibly, maybe someday, building something in Russia. Apparently that project never was actually consummated. It never happened. It was nothing more than someone's future daydream. But money has changed hands between the Biden family and various overseas actors. And Senator, I don't know if you saw this, Senator Chuck Grassley, as I mentioned, penned a letter to Merrick Garland last week, and he said that, let me find it here. He said FBI whistleblowers have come forward at his urging to describe evidence the Bureau is sitting on. He said that everything warrants a proper, unbiased investigation. And the crux of this latest allegation is that Senator Grassley says the FBI is in actual possession of information that indicates that the Biden family began doing work on behalf of a certain Chinese government front company while Joe Biden was vice president, and they simply delayed a $6 million payment until he was out of office. Now, Senator, I don't know if this is true or not, but every time there was even the inkling of smoke about anybody involving Trump world, it was apparently grounds for impeachment and, months of congressional hearings. So it'd be nice if someone would pay attention to this when the shoe's on the other foot, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I fear now that the evidence of corruption, maybe small c, maybe big C, maybe legal, maybe not legal, is much greater than we had thought. I mean, I knew that obviously the hunter was involved in all this stuff, but I fear now the connections to the family were much greater, including to the president himself. And you're right, it's going to have to be investigated. I say I fear it because I don't think, we don't need more. Washington's become about scandals and investigating scandals, and it's not a good thing. But if it's as bad as it sounds like, and Chuck Grassley's a serious person. I've known him for a long time. I don't think he does this unless he feels like that evidence is really there. That's not a good thing. But and you're right, obviously, there's an enormous double standard. I think after the midterms, that'll break down some. I think the press is not talking about it now because the elections are coming up. I just don't see them being able to ignore this indefinitely. And I think a lot of them want Biden to be gone anyway. And they're right about that from a political point of view. So this may break after the elections, and we have to do what we have to do. I mean, it's pretty clear that Hunter was the money collector for the family. I mean, he said so himself, I think, in some of those emails that I've read, that he said everybody complains and, attacks me all the time. He's talking about the family, but he says, I'm supporting everybody. So we'll find out.
Senator, Chinese President Xi is on track for a third 5-year unprecedented term. What does that mean for the Chinese-U.S. relationship? And could he just end up just being a dictator and being there until he dies? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I think that's what this signals. I think he's turning 70 soon. But what I don't think is that he's sitting there saying, gee, I've got 15 years or so to do what I want to do. I think it's bad news for Taiwan. And that's the flashpoint. The Chinese consider it the highest priority of all their core interests. And I do not see him going through another 5-year term without making some kind of a move. That's pretty much, I think, a consensus within the Department of Defense. The last head, not the current, but the last head of Indo-PACOM, when he was retiring, testified that he thought 2027 was the right time frame. In other words, they now call it the Davidson window after it. So now there's issues in China, and it's not because of COVID. Janet Yellen saying, well, COVID's caused all these problems. No, it's the response to COVID by the governments, including China. There's huge problems with debt bubbles, particularly in the property sector, and all the weight of the wasteful government state-owned enterprises is bearing down on the economy there. So they do have a lot of problems. Xi's going to have to deal with it. And it's going to be interesting to see if areas or networks of opposition begin to arise to him. So far, there have been some glimmerings of it, but of course, he's pretty effective at repression. So I'm not holding my breath, but it wouldn't shock me to see that start to happen.
Speaking of former U.S. Senator Jim Talent, at Jim Talent on Twitter. Senator, with 3 weeks left, you are as we often say, a former U.S. Senator. You've been in that august body. What do you think? Do you have thoughts about any of the 7 big Senate races that the eyes of the nation are carefully following?
Yeah, I think there's no question in my mind that there's a trend, and it's a Republican trend, or I guess I should say it's an anti-democratic trend, and for all the reasons that you guys have discussed. And so I think if you err on the side of the over in terms of Republican gains, you're probably going to be closer to the truth. Now, the wild cards in this is always the individual campaigns, as you guys know, and how well the candidates are doing. I thought Herschel Walker did very well in his debate. I think he fixed a lot of that damage. I think Dr. Oz, this guy is really interesting to me. I mean, I think he spent the last, 4 or 5 months traveling to every church dinner in Pennsylvania and showing people that he's a normal guy. Mm-hmm. So I think he's in good shape. I think Ron Johnson is in good shape. So I think in most of those races, the Republicans should do very well. And there's a shot at like Colorado and Washington.
Mm-hmm. Great. Senator, thank you so much. And we always appreciate your insight and analysis. And we're definitely going to
squelcher conversation.
I think we were just kind of pondering everything you just said, especially the last part about watching a couple of those maybe outliers that could come through.
Republicans have outstanding candidates in O'Day and, the woman's name escapes me. This is terrible. I just said she was outstanding in Washington State. Mm-hmm. They're really good, and good candidates in a good year can really pull off some upsets. So it's going to be interesting. I'm watching those races. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely. And we all are as well. Former U.S. Senator Jim Talent, chair of the Reagan Institute. Jim, thanks so much for joining us as you do every Monday. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Senator.
Right. Always a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm. All right. We'll talk to him again soon. We'll be back with Chris's Corner, and Chris is apparently going to talk about one of the president's favorite dishes.
Yeah, I've been pondering around trying to figure out what topic I wanted to talk about Chris's Corner, and this came up talking to Senator Talent. I took that as a sign from God that this is your topic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Stel?
Ice cream?
Yeah.
Joe Biden.
Can't ever go wrong with ice cream, can
Joe
you?
Biden, ice cream, and more when the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show rolls on here at 101.9, 94.1. Chris's Corner up next at News Talk STL.
Made in St. Louis for St. Louis. It's News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by Walgreens. Finding the right Medicare plan is no easy feat. With Walgreens, find RX coverage, compare plans online, over the phone, or in person, and find plans with low-cost copays. When you need to talk Medicare, Walgreens is here. Start shopping at walgreens.com/Medicare. Accident eastbound 270 between McDonald and Lindbergh. The 2 right lanes are blocked, and there's debris in the left lane. Traffic is coming to a stop at McDonald. Also, the signals are malfunctioning West Florissant at Chambers. An earlier crash northbound 170 south of Delmar. Volume westbound 70 at Jennings Station. A stall in the right lane westbound 70 at the Blanchette Bridge. Westbound 64 heavy at Hampton. And crowded westbound 4064 between 364 and I-70. Accident eastbound 64 before 270. I'm Tori Lyons from the News Talk STL Traffic Center.
From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The first widespread freeze of the season tonight. A low of 29, a little colder in outlying areas, so this is a hard freeze. Want to bring in those potted plants and consider undoing the hoses from the outdoor bibs too before you head to bed tonight. Otherwise, just a breezy, chilly day, a high of just 50 degrees and sunny skies. Wednesday, below freezing at 29 to start, then 53 and partly cloudy. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Decision 22 News.
Inflation, gas prices.
Decision 22 Analysis.
Things the American people want to hear about.
Decision 22 Opinion.
Same old tired talking points.
In St. Louis, Decision 2022 happens right here. News Talk STL.
Hi, this is State Representative Jim Murphy. Rising prices, crime, government overreach. These are issues on the minds of St. Louisans. As your state rep, I share your concerns. I filed legislation that reins in out-of-control bureaucrats, puts an end to gangs pilfering through our cars, and gets stolen guns off the streets. I have voted against out-of-control spending and voted for the biggest tax cut in Missouri history. I ask for your support in November as this work has just begun. Vote Jim Murphy, your state rep.
Paid for by Citizens for Murphy. Mary L. Murphy, Treasurer.
Are you the type of person who loves their community and wants it to be the best it can be? Now it's easier than ever to do your part. Go to recyclemo.com to see just how easy it is to recycle the right way. Or if you already recycle and want to be as efficient as possible, recyclemo.com can tell you what should and should not be recycled in your area. Become part of the clean recycling movement today. It's the right thing to do. Sponsored by the Missouri Department of Natural Resources.
Doug. Hey listener, welcome to Limu's Karaoke Lounge, where Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need, and the music never stops. Hit it!
There's an emu with a full-time job. His partner's Doug, but Limu's the heartthrob. Grubs and worms, that's what Limu eats. Gotta fuel up to save you money and hit the streets!
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
The best part about taking ZQuil Pure Z's Sleep Plus Next Day Energy at night is actually the next morning. I wake up alert with none of the grogginess from taking too much melatonin. Pure Z Sleep Plus Next Day Energy is a bilayer tablet with immediate release melatonin and extended release B vitamins to help me fall asleep naturally and wake refreshed. It's my secret weapon for a great night's sleep and a great morning.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Mom.
Can't beat that.
ZQuil Pure Z's Gummies. Sleep better, wake your best.
The Vic Porcelli Show.
Only 21 days until the all-important midterm elections.
21 days?
Tuesday at 10:05, we'll talk to soon-to-be State Senator Nick Schroer.
Weekday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Here's what's happened at our border since the Biden administration was sworn in. 3 million illegal migrants have been apprehended. We now have more than 900,000 known gotaways in our country. 78 terrorists have been caught, triple the number of the 5 previous years combined, and a devastating historic high of 100,000 fentanyl poisonings have plagued our nation. Even with all that evidence, Border Czar Harris continues to claim we have a secure border.
We have a secure border.
And still DHS Secretary Mayorkas claims we have operational control.
We will not lose operational control of the border.
I could go on and on, but the truth is the Biden administration has ceded ground to criminal cartels who now have complete control of our southern border.
Well, there's the very dramatic reading by Congressman Mike Cloud. Hey, I can't tell, Chris, if that's like I guess it's a campaign ad, but it sounds very official.
It sounds like a documentary, but it sounds like a campaign ad. Whatever it is, it scares the hell out of me.
Me too. It's obviously effective.
I'll tell you that.
Yeah, welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show here at 4:48 in the PM, 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. Congressman Mike Cloud there, who I'm assuming is he's a Texas congressman talking about one of the major topics of this electoral cycle.
Yeah, Tim, well, in that clip, the Biden administration tells us that the border is secure, even though neither the president or the vice president have visited the border. Neither has our Homeland Secretary of Homeland Security. He hasn't visited the border either. And then we had over the weekend our president telling us that our economy is strong as hell. It's amateur hour at the White House, and we're going to talk about that next on Chris's Corner.
Chris.
The whole thing is a joke.
Good God, we got to do something here, people.
It's not personal. It's strictly business.
My favorite black leader of all time is Frederick Douglass, who asked after emancipation, well, we just freed the blacks, now what are we going to do with them? And his answer was, leave us alone.
And if you don't know, now you know.
And now, Chris's Corner.
We talked a little bit about it, excuse me, with our prior guest, Senator Jim Talent, about the horrible visual that was released over the weekend of our illustrious president eating an ice cream cone, and he's famous for that. Look, we won't begrudge anyone for wanting to enjoy some ice cream on a late fall day. They have no problem with that. But the visual was just absolutely terrible, as I said. We're facing a 40-year high in inflation. We have the President of the United States telling us our economy is strong as hell when polling shows that consumer confidence is at its lowest in the last 40 years. And you have the President, as I said, wearing a pair of $200 Ray-Ban aviator sunglasses, holding a ice cream cone with two $10 bills in his hand, giving the appearance that this ice cream cone costs $20 and the president received it and he's about to pay for it. Just horrible, and it makes you wonder, is it truly amateur hour at the White House? We talked about it earlier in the show a little bit about this New York Times Siena College poll that showed that 49% of voters say they want to back a Republican congressional candidate compared to 45% backing a Democratic candidate. Just probably a month ago, Democrats had a slight lead of 1 point. That has evaporated. And something that's very interesting in this New York Times Siena poll is this. The survey tested former President Donald Trump's favorability rating as well. He had a 52% unfavorability rating. You always want to be under 50%, of course. But Mr. Biden, the president, had a 58% job disapproval rating. And here's something that's interesting as well. In a hypothetical 2024 matchup, Mr. Trump led Mr. Biden in the poll by 1 percentage point. Among women, Mr. Biden was ahead of Mr. Trump by only 4 points. Listen to that. Mr. Biden was ahead of Mr. Trump by only 4 points, compared with a margin of more than 10 points that he won women in 2020. Wow. Boy, this president and the Democrats are in severe trouble. We hear all of the stories about inflation, crime. We're seeing Oregon and Washington races that are up for grabs where Republicans are competitive. The president of the United States, who spent time on the West Coast, is campaigning in states that should be locks for the Democrats. And if you'll notice, you don't see them sending him to Wisconsin or Pennsylvania or Georgia or any of the other states. I said it many times here, and I know Vic absolutely hates it when we talk about red wave and red tsunami because he doesn't want to jinx it, and I get that. But as President Trump, as Senator Talent said in our last segment, it's looking very, very well for the Republicans right now. Even as Jim said, Herschel Walker, who the bar was set very, very low for his debate Thursday or Friday night, did very well in that debate. He kept his opponent Warnock on his toes, on the defensive during the entire debate. And I think that's kind of a linchpin, of just how well Republicans are going to do this year. I think you could arguably say that Herschel Walker is the weak link when it comes to us taking back the Senate and these Senate races. But to see him do as well as he did in that race, and he's the weak link, really gives me a lot of encouragement. So that is the race. It's always ironic that the Democratic Party, which is supposed to be the party of empathy and always there for the little man, their leader is eating an ice cream cone with $200 pair of glasses on, paying $20 for an ice cream cone, and basically telling Americans, let them eat cake, or in this instance, let them eat ice cream. And that is Chris's Corner.
Butter pecan, please.
Butter pecan, please.
Yeah,
Just as
like
long as it's not mint. I hate anything mint. I don't know how anybody could want a dessert or something sweet and it be mint. Mint is just gross to me.
I'll eat mint cookies, like the Girl Scout ones, the Thin Mints. But that's about it. Mint's overpowered. You want mint in a in a breath freshener.
Exactly. I don't want a mint when I'm eating dessert.
Okay, so my favorite would be chocolate chip cookie dough.
Yeah.
What's your favorite flavor? Do you have one?
You know what? I'm really a simple guy, and I think my wife can attest to that. I just like a good old-fashioned natural vanilla ice cream, real vanilla. Really sweet flavor of that. I'm good.
When I order like a concrete or something, I do almost this. I get the vanilla concrete, and then I have them put the chocolate chip cookie dough in there. And I could eat cookie dough. They make they like bags of them with like little balls of them. You can just eat them straight. So good. Ooh.
I can hear all the haters out there now. Figure Chris Arps would want vanilla ice cream. Uncle Tom.
I think vanilla usually ranks at the top.
I know, but I know the haters. Boy, figures he want the vanilla ice cream.
White privilege.
Sell out.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, tell me more about this. I've only seen some of the clips and very few of them. I'm curious to know. So Herschel did really well.
Oh my God, he did fantastic.
Now, why are people saying that, or why do you think that?
I think he did well because, first of all, the expectations for him were set very low.
Okay.
And he exceeded them. They literally must have locked him in a room and gave him a book of talking points and had him very, very well rehearsed. I have to say this, too. I was surprised how even the moderators were. They were on some of the stuff that Warnock had done with his ex-wife and with the church.
Really?
They did the stuff that Herschel was being zinged on. They were very fair in that. But Herschel was very aggressive, and I'll give you one example of his aggressiveness. Warnock tried to zing him on being a fake, quote-unquote, police officer. And Herschel pulled out a badge, and the moderator had a conniption fit because you're not supposed to have props.
Oh.
And she's like, Mr. Walker, you're not supposed to have props. You're not supposed to have props. But he just kept Warnock on the defensive the whole time, and he's had a brilliant line. He's like, you're supposed to be a pastor, and you're talking about abortion and all of that. You say that the government shouldn't be in the hospital room with that mother while she's making that decision. Herschel had a brilliant remark. He said, you know what, also, too, you're forgetting one person. There's a baby in that room, too, along with the mother and the doctor. And I was like, and the crowd just erupted and just clapped. And he had several great moments like that.
That's fantastic.
Herschel did very, very well.
Good for him. That's really excellent indeed. I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah, he did fantastic.
All right. Well, and maybe that's why these Democrats are trying not to debate most of the Republicans. I heard somebody talk about the other day, when none of the issues are on your side, the last thing you want to do is debate someone where all the issues are on their side. Yeah. And that's what this election's all about.
Yeah, and you can't defend IRA. The Inflation Reduction Act, that's their big signature item, and they're silent on it.
It's not on a single campaign piece.
Nothing.
All right, 4:57, nearly 4:58 in the afternoon here on a Monday, October 17th. We'll be back with the Speaker Stump speech with Susie Moore of Red State and more here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
Made in St. Louis for St. Louis. It's News Talk STL.
Open enrollment is coming for anyone covered by Affordable Care Act. Open enrollment starts on November 1st and stays open through January 15th each year. Available insurance options change, and it is only during this open enrollment period that you can make modifications to your enrollment. This process can be confusing, overwhelming, and very time-consuming. MB Health is local and here in person to complete this process for you quickly, properly, and effectively. You can reach Mike Butts and his expert team at MB Health, 314-544-5400, or visit mbhealth.com to schedule an appointment. MB Health can also help small businesses find the perfect medical coverage for their employees.
If you're like most Americans, you're pretty much in disbelief watching the world lose its mind. As we all know, global problems have local consequences, too many of them. And if the next news headline spins us into chaos, are you ready? Grocery store supply chains are only as strong as their weakest link. Don't wait for them to break. Today's the day to secure emergency food for everyone in your family. My Patriot Supply is America's largest preparedness company. Our specially packaged and delicious food stays fresh for up to 25 years in storage. It'll be there when you need it. Go to mypatriotsupply.com and pick up several emergency food kits. There are a dozen different sizes that average over 2,000 calories per day. Our food kits are in stock and ship quickly and discreetly to your door. Having food storage in your home beats standing in government food lines. Go to mypatriotsupply.com and prepare for what's coming. mypatriotsupply.com.
Hey everybody, this is Paul Kurtman, host of the Paul Kurtman Show on News Talk STL, but I'm also the president of PR Kurtman Investments. The market is down and inflation is up. So if you have questions about the investments in your portfolio, please let me help. Just send me an email by visiting freedomportfolios.com. There's no cost. The market might be uncertain, but that doesn't mean you should be too. Contact me today, Paul Kurtman, by visiting freedomportfolios.com.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy is confident about his chances of becoming Speaker next year if Republicans win control of the House in the midterm elections.
McCarthy said in an interview with Punchbowl News published Monday that he believes he can win the votes of the House Republican Conference no matter how large a GOP majority is, that the proposal of losing does not keep him up at night, and that if he doesn't win, it wasn't in God's plan. The GOP leader predicted last year that his party could flip as many as 60 seats, but Republicans have since then tempered expectations. He said it would be a little hard to win the speakership for a second time in 2025 if Republicans hold on to the House, but their majority shrinks. Bernie Bennett in Washington.
NATO's begun its annual nuclear exercises in northwestern Europe as tensions simmer over the war in Ukraine.
The NATO exercises also come following Russian President Vladimir Putin's threat to use any means to defend Russian territory. 14 of NATO's 30-member countries are taking part in the exercises, along with around 60 aircraft, including fighter jets, surveillance, and refueling planes. The exercises were planned before Putin ordered Russian troops into Ukraine. Russia also usually holds annual maneuvers around the same time.
White House correspondent Greg Clugston. The acting president of the Los Angeles City Council is escalating the pressure on two members to resign over their participation in a private meeting in which they did not object to a colleague's crude and racist remarks and at times joined in the banter. Acting Council President Mitch O'Farrell said Monday that he will strip Gil Cedillo and Kevin De Leon of committee assignments and chairmanships. The two have refused calls to step down despite widespread condemnation that led former Council President Nuri Martinez to resign last week. On Wall Street, the Dow by 551 points. More at townhall.com.
Factor pain relief that's natural, pain relief that works, and pain relief that attacks the source of the pain. That's the experience of tens of thousands of Americans who are taking Relief Factor right now. See their incredible video endorsements at relieffactor.com and then order your 3-week quick starter pack for just $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. Find out if it can work for you like it works for me by ordering your 3-week quick starter pack today. relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Be the next success story.
What's for dinner? Burgers?
After last week, no thanks.
Avoiding foods due to fear of diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools? It may not be just stomach issues. It could be EPI, or exocrine pancreatic insufficiency. EPI can cause uncomfortable symptoms because it's a condition where the pancreas doesn't release enough digestive enzymes to break down food. But EPI can be managed. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor about your symptoms. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Do you need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blind shades and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds, easy to install and guaranteed to fit. Don't overpay for new blinds. Shop and save big at Blindster.com. A crash eastbound 270 between McDonald and Lindbergh. Only the left lane is open. Expect delays. The signals are malfunctioning west Florissant at Chambers. An earlier crash northbound 170 south of Del Mar. A stall taking out the right lane westbound 70 at the Blanchette Bridge. Heavy westbound 64 at Hampton. Crowded westbound 4064, 364 to I-70. Accident eastbound 64 before 270. Jam southbound 55 between 44 and Potomac. And westbound 44 slow ramping on to southbound 270. I'm Tori Lyons from the News Talk STL Traffic Center.
From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The first widespread freeze of the season tonight. A low of 29, a little colder in outlying areas, so this is a hard freeze. Want to bring in those potted plants and consider undoing the hoses from the outdoor bibs too before you head to bed tonight. Otherwise, just a breezy, chilly day, a high of just 50 degrees and sunny skies. Wednesday below freezing at 29 to start, then 53 and partly cloudy. That's the latest First Alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Life insurance is one of those things that just about everybody needs, but few people actually have. Hey, if you die unexpectedly without life insurance, guess what? You'll leave your family with even a bigger mess. Life insurance will help replace your family's income. It'll help cover burial expenses. Life insurance can even help pay off debt like credit cards and medical bills. Life insurance can even pay for college. And if you own a business and you die, life insurance can help your business from collapsing. It can even help cover estate taxes. Life insurance has never been more affordable and needed. Plus, you can always shop around even if you have a plan and save some money. So call the Life Insurance Quote Line right now for free pricing information.
800-979-3060. 800-979-3060. 800-979-3060. That's 800-979-3060.
Free speech is alive and well in America.
Sometimes it's hard to know what's real and what isn't.
Right here.
The country is heading in the wrong direction under this president. We're suffering shortages. America's running out of everything.
News Talk STL. News, analysis, opinion. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
The Strategic Petroleum Reserve is at the lowest level since 37 years, and you said you've set aside some gas for Florida. Is there a concern that the reserve is not high enough now to handle the aftermath of this emergency and other hurricanes that could come?
I don't have any concerns at this point that we're going to have the ability to handle the fuel needs that we're going to need in Florida. We will continue to assess after the storm passes to see what the impacts are. We'll make sure that we're putting measures in place to support any gaps that we may identify.
The season, you think you're covered?
It all depends on what the impacts from this storm might bring, and so we need to do those assessments after the storm passes.
Well, there you have it. That's the FEMA administrator. I'm going to talk about her in my speaker stump speech. First of all, welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show here at 1019 94.1 News Talk STL, 5:07 in the PM. Chris Arps is here. I'm here. Stell's here.
Hey, guys.
Because Katie's not. No smoke yet out of the, you know how they do with the Vatican when they choose the new pope?
Yeah.
No smoke out of the window yet that we've heard of yet from Katie?
No, nothing yet.
Nothing new yet.
We've lost Katie for a few months on maternity leave, but with Stell, we have gained a fact checker. And, we always want to be honest here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show and give accurate information. The former governor of New York, George Pataki, is not of Greek descent. He is actually of Hungarian descent, and Stell said that on air off air. So Stell, thank you for correcting me, and our audience has the correct info.
I remember somewhere in my mind linking Pataki and George Soros and the fact that they were both Hungarian nationality, at least as far as family ties are concerned, and that was why it kind of jumped out at me. I'm not sure, but Dukakis obviously was a Greek. Yeah.
Can I tell you guys something?
You may.
Before during the break, and we're coming back, for nostalgia's sake, I turned on the light in Katie's office and just looked around. Katie, it looks very nice. You kept it, if she's listening, you kept it very nice and everything's in its place.
It's immaculate.
It's ready for you to come back in January. But yeah, I just turned it on, kind of looked around.
Any tears?
Okay,
not yet.
I did give a sigh, a heavy sigh, and then I walked back down the hall and
Stell
corrected me.
Stell may be crying after a week with us. Yeah, he might be. Stell, it's great that we have you here. We're so blessed that you were at a time in your life and in a position where you could join us here at the News Talk STL.
Thanks very much.
And correct me.
And if you give me some more butter pecan ice cream, I'll be glad.
No mint.
It'll be nicer. That's right. I received, I should say the family, the Jones family, we received some wild news last week that on one hand made me extremely proud as a dad, and on the other hand, made me feel old, and on the other hand, made me feel terrified. And that was, this has been going on for a while. My daughter has been applying to colleges. And she got her first acceptance letter. And it wasn't a letter. It was an email, of course. She got her first acceptance email. And they said the hard copy's coming because we still have to do things. They still want to send that officially on paper. But she got accepted to Drake University in Iowa.
In Des Moines.
I had a friend like that.
Yeah.
And it's not her top choice, but I could see the burden lift off of Katie's shoulders. Kind of like, because you had that fear. It's like, what if I'm going to accept it anywhere? Now, Katie is brilliant, takes after her mother, and is going to get accepted in most of the places she's applying to. But, until that dam breaks, you're like, am I going to accept it anywhere? Are they going to? And they offered her a presidential scholarship, which is for folks of a certain performance level. And that was great. So her mother and I looked at her and said, oh, thank God, people are going to offer her money too. So we were very thankful about that. But boy, I was like, wow, I have a child who's going to college next year. So that's the first, and I'll keep you all updated on as others come in. But
that's awesome. Yeah.
I was, you never know, Chris, how younger people are thinking these days. And we often complain about the younger generations. And so therefore, I was pleasantly surprised when I asked Katie last week if she wanted to come to the St. Louis County Lincoln Reagan Days dinner with me. And she said yes. And I told her who was the keynote speaker, and she said, I think I want to hear that woman speak. And we went and we sat and we hung out we were seated at Councilman Mark Harder's table, met a lot of other very nice people. There was a ton of family and friends. Chris and I ran into, I don't know how many people said they listen to the station and they love what we do. Got a lot of kudos.
And you reminded me of something.
Yeah.
If you finished.
And I just want to say, at the end of so I didn't say anything throughout most of the evening. I just let Katie take it all in. At the end of the night, I said, so, was that the worst experience in your life going to a dinner with your dad, a political dinner with your dad, or what'd you think? She goes, Dad, I really enjoyed that. Thanks for bringing me. I was like, God bless America. So yeah.
That's great. I had a chance to give a shout out to the station and all the individual shows here on the station, and I got to be honest. When I said radio legend Vic Porcelli, Vic got the loudest.
He did.
Vic got the loudest applause of all the shows. So Vic, congratulations! You have fans. Your people were there.
I noticed that.
Did you notice that?
I noticed that. They're like, I could tell people were like, yeah, we know Arps and Jones because they're here, and yeah, Mike Ferguson's great, and all these other yahoos you're mentioning. Vic Porcelli's name comes up, and it was like, woo!
Vic got a big rousing applause.
Yes,
well deserved.
No, definitely,
it is.
Definitely.
It is. When you build a career like that in one town, it's nice to know that you have had an impact on people's lives, and he definitely has.
Oh, definitely.
And I think it's, I didn't know if he was going to bring it back or not. I think it has been a winning ingredient that he has brought back Porcelli's Deli.
Most definitely.
Once a week, right here on News Talk STL.
That should be patented or something, trademarked or something for him.
It really should be.
Porcelli's Deli, just remember that from back in the day, the music.
I want to know where the T-shirts are. Like, there's got to be Porcelli Deli T-shirts out there. If there's not, why aren't we making them?
And he needs to open up a deli.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
He doesn't have to be there to run it. He can have someone else take care of it.
You'd be a good partner with that, right?
I would love it.
You can bring
I grew up in the restaurant business.
You can bring the Greek influence in with the
Exactly.
Italians.
Yeah. That would be fun.
That would be a heck of a deli.
It would.
I think we're onto something here, Stel.
Yeah.
Greek, Italian. What you need is a Greek, Italian, and a Jewish deli.
Yeah.
Just combine all of that together, and you are.
That's a home run.
That's good eating right there.
Chris and I will taste test every day.
Okay.
Yeah, we would. I think
Gyros and pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're onto something.
So that's how you say. So it's not gyro.
No, it's not.
You sure?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Do you have a favorite? Do you say hero? Do you say hero? Hero.
You got the roll thing.
Hero. Do you have a favorite spot in town that you're like, all right, this is my go-to place when I'm going to get the best hero around?
Definitely at the top of the list would be the Greek Kitchen in Kirkwood.
Okay.
On Kirkwood Boulevard, just south of the train station.
There you go.
Next probably would be Olympia on McCausland.
I know.
Moderately priced and a very good restaurant.
Just ate there a couple of weeks ago.
Awesome. And there are a few others scattered around the area. There's Apollonia. There's Aries on Hampton. There's
I think one of the best places,
Spiro's, which is more expensive.
The place in the Loop, Giro House.
Okay,
that used to be the name of it. I think they may have changed. They're very, very good.
Okay.
I don't know about you guys. I'm hungry now.
You know what? Stell, explain this to me, and I should. I'm not a food connoisseur and should be more well read than this, I guess. But when you see in a lot of the Giro houses and everything that a lot of Lebanese people own them, and I thought that was a Greek staple. Was that? Explain that to me.
I think there's a lot of crossover items, a lot of crossover meals like baklava is shared by both. I think moussaka and probably pasticcio are shared by both. They may have different names on the Lebanese side. Where I grew up in Lombard, in the western suburbs, there were some Lebanese folks who lived in Lombard, and they would come by our restaurant, and they would always get whatever Greek item my dad had on the menu.
Right.
It was an American restaurant, but my dad would go out of his way to put one Greek item on the menu every day, just hoping that folks would try it.
Right.
He'd give samples out.
That's funny.
Because it was a lot of Germans and Scandinavian folks lived in that area in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And so he would do that to try and entice them, and they would say, wow, this tastes great. I may order this the next time I come in. Roast lamb, et cetera, stuff like that. So, yeah, there is a crossover, and I think there are a lot of Lebanese items that could easily fit onto a Greek menu.
I just noticed when I go to a lot of those places, they're owned by Lebanese.
You're right.
I was like, hey, I thought this was a Greek restaurant. You're Lebanese.
That is fantastic. Yeah,
there's also a couple owned by Albanian folks that I can think of, including the one, by the way, that's in Washington. There's a Gyro's place in Washington.
Is there really in Washington, Missouri?
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's close to the Walmart that's in Washington, and there's a Gyro's at the end of the plaza there, and it's owned by a lady who came from Albania.
How
Very
funny.
nice gal.
I remember, we've gotten on this food whole thing, but I remember years ago, what was Bar Italia in the
Bar Italia.
Central West End?
It's still there.
That the cooks were Ethiopians.
Yes.
And the reason why, because Italy had taken over Ethiopia in World War II, and a lot of them learned Italian cooking from that, and that was just amazing me that all of the cooks in the bar, and I think they, if I'm not wrong, I think Ethiopians owned it.
They do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a guy and his brother. Chris, that came here. Okay, I'll tell you why I know all this. You know whose favorite restaurant that is?
Who?
Rex Singfield's.
Oh, okay.
And I've had a few dinners there over the years.
All right.
And the two brothers came here. I think it's two brothers, if my memory's correct.
Yeah.
And I only met the one. He came here like in the 70s. I think they went to Wash U and got their MBAs. They're brilliant restaurateurs, and they're the nicest guys in the world. And their menu is like prolific. They've got Greek dishes on there. They've got Italian. It's very Mediterranean.
Right.
And it's a huge menu. Highly recommend it. It's a good place.
Oh, great restaurant.
Very reasonably priced,
Yeah.
and not many people talk about it. I guess they have a heck of a clientele. They don't need to advertise much. So we'd love to advertise for them here.
Exactly.
Bar Italia. All right. Without further ado,
That's a rabbit hole. And
that sure was. You know what? That's fun. It's fun.
I'm hungry,
But
man.
it was tasty. It was good.
It was very good. It was it's fun going down those every once in a while. Hey, I played many moons ago at the beginning of this segment. We played the FEMA administrator. Let me find out what she said here. Here we go. We played the FEMA administrator in the Biden administration talking about how she's not worried about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve being at the lowest level in 37 years. I feel like that's the entire administration's attitude. It's very Alfred E. Newman. What? Me worry. And that's the subject of today's Speaker Stump Speech.
Listen to me, listen to me.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
So that's another reason we need communism.
It's time for the Speaker's Stump Speech, sponsored by Hanson's Tree Service at hansonstree.com.
So, most of our audience, well, Maybe some of our audience is wondering what I'm talking about when I talk about Mad Magazine, Alfred E. Newman, and What Me Worry. Well, it was kind of the Onion / Babylon Bee of its day, right? It was very like sort of politically incorrect humor, kind of like goofiness, kind of goofy stuff, cartoonish. And Alfred E. Newman was like the mascot of Mad Magazine. And Alfred E. Newman was this curly redheaded kid, and he was always like disaster seemed to follow in his wake wherever he went, right? But he never cared about it. Like for instance, he'd drive across a bridge and the bridge would blow up behind him and he'd be on the other side. So he'd be like, what? Me worry? Nah, no big deal. I feel like that sums up the Biden administration. They're like a real live edition of Mad Magazine every single week. However, unlike Alfred E. Newman, who for the most part did not cause any of these things to happen, he was kind of like the Pigpen character in Peanuts. The storm cloud, the dust cloud, just followed him around, right? So with the Biden administration, they've caused these things to happen. And what am I talking about today? Well, how about the fact that our strategic petroleum reserve is at the lowest in 37 years? Why is it at the lowest? It's not because we've needed to fight a war or anything. I mean, yes, there is a war going on between Russia and Ukraine. We are sending some money and some armaments. There's also, let me tell you folks, a lot of other wars going on around the world where we are involved in one way or another, either our CIA or our special forces or other things that you probably don't want to know about are occurring. The Biden administration caused, on behalf of all of us, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to go down to the lowest level in 37 years, not because we're fighting a war, not because of a natural disaster, not because of some emergency, but because of politics. It looked good for them to try and drive those prices down. And at the same time, they're trying to say, we need to get rid of all this petroleum stuff. We're going to run everything off of unicorns, rainbows, windmills, and solar panels. And yeah, I put all four of those things pretty much in the same camp together. Not because I hate solar power, not because I hate windmills. Any of you all who are in those industries, God bless you. I really hope someday we literally can run baseload energy off of something that tilts in the wind. I really hope that someday we can put grass in our gas tanks and it powers them just as well as our combustion engines. If we can somehow get on electricity and figure out how to do it without strip mining the entire planet and depleting the lithium reserves and all of the rare earth minerals and powering all of that electricity off of coal, then I'm all for it. But the Biden administration seems absolutely intent on completely eliminating our energy independence at our own behest and then being dependent upon everyone else for those same exact material resources. You know, it would be one thing if we were not building pipelines because we're not going to use oil anymore. No, we're not building a pipeline for us, but we're going to go ahead and use the material that flows through that pipeline. We're just going to buy it from Venezuela or Iran or some other country that does not have our best interests at heart. No, we're not going to stop using natural gas. We're just going to have to buy it probably in some roundabout way from the Russians, the country that apparently we absolutely hate these days. Look, Vladimir Putin is a horrible tyrant, but why don't we stop using it? But it would be one thing if we were not using the stuff that he's selling. We're still using it. We're just not developing it here. So we're causing the price of everything that Vladimir Putin is selling to go up. Did you know, folks, that the ruble is now one of the strongest currencies in the world? Vladimir Putin is maybe not selling his natural resources to Western Europe or the U.S., so instead he's decided to get all chummy and buddy-buddy with North Korea and with China and with Saudi Arabia and all of the other OPEC plus nations. Here's where I'll finish. All of this is having real-world effects. And you know what? It's really not funny anymore. Consumers, according to FoxBusiness.com, are going to potentially shell out $14 billion more this winter because we have to pay more for energy prices. Because all these things I just mentioned that we have in our country that we could be utilizing through drilling here or fracking here or mining here, or worse yet, how about just a partnership with the Canadians who don't want to blow us off the face of the map? How about just using their oil from their pipeline? No, we're not doing that either. So we're going to punish American consumers, American taxpayers, American families, and American small business owners because of this ridiculous pursuit, this insane pursuit of this green fever dream. Chris and I talk about this all the time, and I really hope that this issue is forefront in people's minds when they go into the ballot box and realize just how much worse everything is, from inflation to energy to food to fuel and to our standing in the world. Another thing for you to put in your pipe and smoke it, as we're 3 weeks away from the midterm election. And that's the stump speech for today, Monday, October the 17th, 2022.
And I have all kind of stuff here talking about the U.S. is forecasted to enter recession. That's Wall Street Journal from yesterday. Another story talking about U.S. gasoline prices are ticking up. That's a Wall Street Journal article from October 6th. Home heating oil, that's looking to be a record on the East Coast. It's ominous times for this White House, man. It's not a good time to be a Democrat.
And what's amazing, Chris, is every time you ask them about one of those things or many of the others we talk about, their response is always, we're not worried. We're not worried. We don't care. It's really it's really incredible indeed, their attitude.
And they were talking about this Inflation Reduction Act. That's $1.9 trillion of spending. That's the Democrats' signature issue. None of the Democratic candidates on the campaign trail are talking about it at all. Not even mentioning it. Because how do you talk about an Inflation Reduction Act when inflation is not reducing and people are still paying a lot higher prices for gas and fuel? You can't go out there with a straight face and say, hey, we passed this to help you. You know, Tim, speaking of your speaker stump speech, you were talking about Ralphie Newman.
Yes.
If people don't know what Ralphie Newman looked like, or that's a little before your Alfred Newman. If you don't know what he looks like, just think Pete Buttigieg.
Yes.
Exactly.
And that is Alfred Newman
with red curly hair. All right, we're gonna head to a break.
So.
Yep, absolutely. We're gonna head to a break now because Susie Moore of Red State is standing by. We're gonna bring her in and find out what's going on at redstate.com and at SmoozyQ on Twitter. When Chris and I return here at 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
Made in St. Louis for St. Louis. It's News Talk STL. From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The first widespread freeze of the season tonight. A low of 29, a little colder in outlying areas, so this is a hard freeze. Want to bring in those potted plants and consider undoing the hoses from the outdoor bibs too before you head to bed tonight. Otherwise, just a breezy, chilly day. A high of just 50 degrees and sunny skies. Wednesday below freezing at 29 to start, then 53 and partly cloudy. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Do you need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blind shades and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds, easy to install and guaranteed to fit. Don't overpay for new blinds. Shop and save big at Blindster.com. Eastbound 270 between McDonald and Lindbergh. They're wrapping up an accident from the right lane. Traffic backs up almost to St. Charles Rock Road, clearing a stall from the right lane. Westbound 70 at the Blanchette Bridge. Watch for brake lights at 270. Accident cleared eastbound 64 before 270. Volume westbound 64 at Hampton. And again on westbound 4064 between 364 and I-70. Crowded southbound 270 between 64 and Manchester. Jam southbound 55 from 44 to Potomac. And a crash westbound 44 west of Highway 100, Washington. I'm Tori Lyons from the News Talk STL Traffic Center.
Colombo here for Agers Heating and Air Conditioning. We trust Agers with our home because their number one priority is doing right by the customer. Temperatures are changing outside, and as we transition from warmer temps to cooler ones, if you have any issues keeping your family comfortable, don't wait. Call the great team at Agers so they can address the issue before it gets worse. Because whether it's repairs or replacement, Agers is there with the clarity and attention to detail your home deserves. Contact Agers now at 636-242-6515 or through their website, callagers.com.
When it comes to spending your tax dollars and teaching your kids, governments and school districts should be an open book. But in Missouri, that's not always the case. Recently, the Show Me Institute sent out a sunshine law request to school districts across the state, asking for information on whether certain topics are being taught. Specifically, a controversial one called critical race theory was included in the list. Many districts didn't respond. Some wanted to charge large fees to process the documents. Lee's Summit outside Kansas City wanted over $35,000. A rural district, Morgan County, wanted $15,000. The Sunshine Law does allow charging a reasonable fee for sending out information, but there's nothing reasonable about $35,000 or $15,000. These districts should want to be transparent about their curriculums. Taxpayers deserve to know what their kids are being taught. Learn more at showmeinstitute.org. The Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
Stay top of mind with your customers, stand out from the competition, and drive productivity with a podcast for your business from Epic STL Podcasts. Log on to newstalkstl.com and click on the Epic STL Podcast button to learn more.
St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
We need change in our country right now.
Live and local.
They clubbed us over the head for 2 years.
Yep. You want corruption? This is how we get corruption.
This is News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
And welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. Forgot who I was for a second. I was talking to Columbo. He was distracting me. 1019 94.1 News Talk STL. Do you guys like scary movies? Or do you like any kind of scary movies? And what kind? Like horror, slasher films, sci-fi, alien stuff, creepy stuff, suspenseful. Do you like all of it, none of it, some of it?
I like supernatural demon horror films.
Okay.
That's a slasher. I kind of grew out of that in high school.
Sorry, 0 for me.
Okay. So Chris, you like The Exorcist.
Okay. Damien,
The Omen.
The Omen, if you remember stuff like that.
That's why I'm not into any of it.
Rosemary's Baby.
Oh my goodness.
So we got into on my morning show this morning that I do remotely into Springfield, Missouri. Producer Cass and I got into a discussion about scary movies because she was talking about something she watched over the weekend. She got dragged to Halloween. The End or something.
The End, finally, after 40 years.
Yeah. And then I brought up The Exorcist, and we talked about The Exorcist in and out of several segments, and all this flood of memories came back. I've only seen the movie like maybe twice, because it does terrify the bejesus out of me, because it's also based on true events, and because, check this out, I've got 2 connections to The Exorcist, kind of in roundabout weird ways. When I was at SLU High here in town, I had a brother, not a... When I say that, I mean, in the Jesuit order, they have fathers and brothers, that aren't quite full priests, whatever. Don't ask me to explain the difference. I had a brother that ran my homeroom. He said he used to tell us stories about the fact when he was a young man here in St. Louis, he was involved in and around some of the periphery of the exorcism that occurred here. Because it was a boy that was brought here from a different state into Alexian Brothers, I believe, the mental hospital, right?
I believe so.
And then when I went to college... Check this out. The resident director of my freshman dorm was a Jesuit priest named Father Tom Birmingham. Father Tom played in the movie, he played the president of Georgetown University. In that scene where they're in the library in Georgetown, he's the older priest there. He has a cameo in that. Before that, he taught the young man Latin back in the day who ended up writing The Exorcist. Yes.
What's his Blatty? Blatty, yeah. I remember that. My mom had the book, so I remember seeing the author's name.
And Father Birmingham ended up consulting on The Exorcist and on the Amityville horror movies and several others. And I lost track of him, of course, because I moved back home, but he passed away in 1998 at the age of 80. He had a great life. He's sitting in his study in our dorm as freshmen around Halloween time, talking about The Exorcist. Woo! Gave you the EBGBs because he very matter of factly told us a lot of the real elements behind that story. So.
Yeah, and Amity, I forgot to mention, Amityville Horror was one of my top demon supernatural movies as well. That I think I was in about 7th or 8th grade when that came out, and just seeing the commercials for it would just scared me to death, because they have this thing where they would show this scene and you'd hear this voice say, "Get out, get out." I can still hear it to this day, but yeah, it'd be like, oh yeah.
Yeah, and that of course happened in Amityville, New York.
Yeah.
Which is a town. So every time we drive past Amityville, you would think about that and you're like, oh, we're not going to get off this exit.
Yeah.
You know? So, let's bring in our next guest, unless we've scared her off. Let's see. She has there we go.
Susie Q, baby, I love you. Susie Q.
I'm the boss. How about that?
I'm walking on sunshine.
As she does every Monday afternoon, take us further into the evening drive is Susie Moore of Red State, Deputy Managing Editor at Red State, redstate.com, at SmoozyQ on Twitter. Susie, did we scare the bejesus out of you, or are you a horror film aficionado?
I am not a horror film aficionado. You did not scare the bejesus out of me, but you did right. You mentioned some films that, yes, they definitely do scare me. Exorcist is one of those. I do not like the slasher movies at all. I like kind of the horror suspense type stuff.
Okay.
Like well-made horror movies that really kind of make you jump and make you nervous and worried.
Give us an example. I'm curious. What's an example?
Well, I mean, okay, Sixth Sense.
Oh yeah. Oh, baby. Woo!
Yeah. So that was, it really, you put some thought into it. Even Scream, even though it was a slasher movie, it was a very clever kind of parody type film. So that one I have to give props to. But generally I steer clear of the Halloweens and that sort of stuff.
So you like more of like the unknown, unseen kind of like boo kind of movies, yeah.
Exactly.
Susie, this Sunday was your big debut on This Week in Missouri Politics, and we want to play a little bit of that for you.
Okay.
Tell me this. I think he's stern because the folks of the state, the overwhelming majority of Republicans, and I think a lot of his regular folks, are wanting somebody stern, right?
Oh, I think he picked up on the fact that they want that fighter and that kind of tough guy mentality, although I didn't think he seemed that stern when he was flipping the burgers on the grill.
That's true. That's true.
We are. All right, what's the context of that? I didn't see the show. Who's flipping burgers on the grill?
Eric Schmidt is what they were
Okay.
referring to.
Okay.
And this was after one of the panelists suggested just kind of some sort of free advice from a Democratic perspective, that she thought that he seemed very stern in his commercials, and so that was what we were referring to.
One thing, what'd you think of Joe Manis? Have you ever met her before? She's a legend.
I've never met her before. I really enjoyed it. I mean, there was a really good, nice panel. Obviously, there were two Democratic, panelists, and then two Republican, and then Scott moderating it. And I thought it was very balanced, and it was a very, kind of interesting discussion. No one was throwing grenades other than, the one guy that Ryan Burke at one point made a comment about how Republicans want to outlaw birth control. So we kind of threw a flag on that play. But other than that,
good for you.
He was very nice. Very nice. I mean, everybody was very cordial.
Susie, speaking of that, that's a perfect segue. National Review had a huge article today talking about the fact that, according to all recent polling, independent women, so not Republicans, independent women are swinging hard towards the GOP despite the Democrats' abortion push. So, Susie, in light of record high inflation and crime and the border and energy prices and everything else, apparently doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on one issue and one issue alone, when we're going to kill babies in the womb, hasn't been a winning issue for Democrats as far as independent women go. Surprised? Not surprised?
I'm not surprised, and here's why. It keeps coming back to something I've said probably enough times that the listeners may actually know what I'm about to say. People, even when they are passionate about an issue like abortion, do not deal with it on a daily basis. It is not something that is part of your life on a day-to-day basis. Putting gas in your car, buying groceries, trying to pay your electric bill and your gas bill, those are things people deal with on a daily basis. So when they're trying to determine who they're going to vote for at the polls, that's why they vote their pocketbooks. Those are things that they literally have to grapple with daily.
Hey, Susie, big debate Friday night, Herschel Walker against Raphael Warnock. Did you get a chance to watch it?
I did not watch it. I mean, we covered it fairly thoroughly at Red State, so I saw some clips and saw the write-ups on it.
Well, I don't know if you had a chance to listen earlier today. I kind of gave my impression. I think Herschel did very, very well. The bar was set low. He exceeded it. He had props. He had zingers. I think he held his own. What is the reaction from the Red State readers? What do they think?
Yeah, no, I think that was the consensus, was that, and part of it was that the bar was set low. I mean, there was this idea that he was just going to flop and be horrific in it, and he wasn't. He held his own. And, Raphael Warnock has a lot of issues of his own that he has to contend with.
Mhm.
So the consensus was that Herschel came out of that unscathed, and that was a win for him, that he did, a decent job. I did see one bit that AOC was trying to, basically make fun of him about, and she was like, what is this? Something on Twitter. It was a clip from the debate, and I can't remember what part it was. So, I mean, obviously the Dems were spinning it as, oh, he's not doing very well. But from what I can tell, he did just fine. And, I still feel like in Georgia, how many split ticket voters are there going to be? I mean,
yeah.
If people are voting for Brian Kemp for governor, which you got to believe most Republicans are there that many that are going to shy away from Herschel Walker?
Mm-hmm. I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Mm-hmm. Speaking to Susie Moore of Red State. Speaking of Red State, folks, you can go to redstate.com right now. And Susie, this is in the VIP section, so folks are going to have to pay for that, but I think it's well worth it indeed, because there's a great article by your colleague Jeff Charles about something Barack Obama said over the weekend. He's popped back up, and he was not being critical, Susie, of Donald Trump. He wasn't being critical of Republicans. He was being critical of his own party. And it's something I think, Susie, that Barack Obama said about a year ago or so, and apparently he's come back to say, none of y'all are listening to me. It's kind of the same problem that folks would criticize Donald Trump about. Well, like, we love his policies, we love what he's doing, but we just can't take the personality, blah, blah, blah. Barack Obama is saying to Democrats, stop being so nasty. The Karen-esque wokeism, it's really getting old. It's interesting that Barack Obama would say such a thing 3 weeks before the midterm. I guess they're trying to throw any Hail Mary they can at this point to maybe salvage themselves from a dumpster fire.
Well, that could be it. It could also be Barack just trying to kind of preserve his legacy. Yeah, I mean, I think he rightly is noting that there's a lot of progressive left that are genuinely buzzkills. They're not fun to be around. They're not pleasant. They don't sell an uplifting message, and that is not helpful to the party as a whole. So I do think it's interesting that he said that. I don't think he's really trying to help the Republicans. I think he's trying to help the Democrats with that by giving them some cues, but they're not picking up on it. But it is interesting, he comes kind of from the older school Democrat wing of the party, and he's still relatively young compared to a lot of the people in the party. But it is interesting that the split you really see between the far left progressive wing and the more traditional, even though I would put Obama in a pretty far left himself, but he still kind of comes from the more traditional school of Democrats.
Got about a minute left. What's your thoughts quickly on the races in Oregon and New Mexico governor's races that Republicans have a really good chance of winning this cycle?
It's interesting, Chris. I actually wrote up the Oregon race over the weekend because Christine Drazen is the Republican candidate in that race, and she stands a pretty good chance, it sounds like, of beating the Democrat. And she's got the backing of Phil Knight, who's the co-founder of Nike. So she's got definite financial backing. But it sounds like there's enough push. People kind of turned off by the far left tilt of everything that she's got a very good chance. And even in Washington, there's a chance of upset there. But a couple of these races are a lot closer. Oh, and the New Mexico one you mentioned. Yeah, well, she's got a scandal problem that she has not handled well, and her Republican opponent is exploiting it properly.
As they should. All right, Susie, we would urge people to, if you want more of that incredible insight and intellect and wisdom and wit, check her out at SmoozyQ on Twitter and redstate.com as well. Susie, thanks as always for joining us on Monday afternoon.
Thank you, Susie.
Thanks, y'all. Have a great evening.
You too.
As well. All right, 5:43. Whew, we got to hurry to get out of this break. We only got a short one left on the other side. If folks would like to give us a ring, we'd be happy to talk to you. Open lines next segment, 314-912-1019. 314-912-1019. We'll wrap things up this hour shortly, and then we'll turn you back to the 4 o'clock hour featuring, of course, former U.S. Senator Jim Talent. Always a fantastic discussion, and more here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
Am I coming out of left field? Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks.
Dropping truth bombs and making you think. It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Want to save big on new blinds? Blindster.com offers custom-made blind shades and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Shop Blindster. Save 45% off any order. Just use the code radio. Offer ends soon. Shop Blindster.com. Eastbound 270 between McDonald and Lindbergh wrapped up an earlier crash to the right shoulder. You're still heavy between McDonald and New Florissant. Cleared a stall from the right lane westbound 70 at the Blanchette Bridge. Traffic moving again coming up from 270. Also a crash eastbound 70 at TR Hughes. It's been cleared from the right shoulder. You're on the brakes westbound 64 between Kings Highway and Bellevue. Stop and go southbound 55 from 44 to Potomac. And they cleared the accident westbound 44 between Washington and Union. I'm Tori Lyons from the News Talk STL Traffic Center.
From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. The first widespread freeze of the season tonight. A low of 29, a little colder in outlying areas, so this is a hard freeze. Want to bring in those potted plants and consider undoing the hoses from the outdoor bibs too before you head to bed tonight. Otherwise, just a breezy, chilly day. A high of just 50 degrees and sunny skies. Wednesday below freezing at 29 to start, then 53 and partly cloudy. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Welcome home to St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
As far as Joe Biden, everything he touches turns into a disaster.
Let me start off with 2 words.
News, analysis, and opinion.
The Saudis need to come to their senses.
Russia knows that nuclear war cannot be won.
The 2022 midterm elections.
Blowout year for Republicans. We cannot afford to lose.
It's insane.
1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Welcome home.
Well, folks, we're going to get a reminder over the next 72 hours or so that winter is coming. I think we're going to rebound into the weekend, but definitely times are a-changing. And if you're worried about keeping up with your proficiency throughout the winter months, the Range St. Louis West is the place that you can practice away from all of the elements throughout the entire winter months. They got all kinds of great specials and membership packages as we're approaching the holidays. Christmas is coming. The Range St. Louis West specializes in training everyday people like you and I to become our own best first responders. They've got 20 lanes downstairs, 3 climate-controlled bays, offering new and experienced shooters a place to train. Upstairs is the inventory floor. Huge inventory, plenty of ammo, plenty of really cool accessories. I was checking out like this little hand-operated safe the other day. It was pretty neat. They've got the classrooms upstairs, they got the simulator room, and they've got wonderful people. A knowledgeable staff of former and current law enforcement ready to train you to be the best shooter that you can be, to be trained to protect you and your family. That's what it's all about in this day and age, folks, when we're worried about crime more than ever before. Best membership value for shooters, great training at a great value, and the best training value for new and experienced shooters as well. I want you to check them out. They're in the heart of the county of St. Louis, in Baldwin, right next to the Baldwin Police Department on Manchester Road. On the web, 24/7 at therangestl.com, therangestl.com.
Columbo and Katie.
When is the timeline of an announcement like that appropriately expected?
First off, if it was not Donald Trump, I would tell you that it would happen probably next spring, late winter, early spring. Donald Trump doesn't do things traditionally. No. I would argue, it would not surprise me that he would, if he were to announce, that he were to announce between the election and the end of the year.
Tony Columbo, Katie Fitzpatrick. Weekdays at 2 on News Talk STL. Mike Ferguson in the morning.
screwing over workers in the name of protecting workers from being exploited. That's how the Biden administration rolls. I'll explain on Tuesday.
Mornings starting at 5:30 on News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
I want to save your life.
Well, what's funny,
We need
man,
to keep moving, Mr.
I
Walker.
have to respond to this. Very quick. Because he told me Black Lives Matter. And if you think about it, Senator, in Atlanta, Georgia, there's more black baby that is aborted than anything. So if Black Lives Matter, why are you not protecting those babies? And instead of aborting those babies, why are you not baptizing those babies?
Mr. Warnock, or Senator Warnock, will give you a chance to respond to that.
I think the women of Georgia have a clear choice. He says no exceptions, even in the case of rape, incest, or the life of the mother. I think that's extreme, it's out of touch with Georgia, and I intend to do the work that senators can do.
See, he didn't read the heartbeat bill, though. Wait, he didn't read the heartbeat bill. That there is exceptions for that in the heartbeat bill. So when he makes a statement that is untrue, and I do respect that, Senator, you have to read that bill.
Well, Herschel Walker did come prepared to that debate. He knew all the details.
He was very prepared. He had his zingers. He had everything ready. He did make some news in that debate, though. He did change his stance a little bit on abortion. He was no exceptions at all, and now he is for the Georgia heartbeat bill that does allow exceptions for rape and incest. But other than that change in his position, he was solid.
Wouldn't the follow-up question for the moderators to Raphael Warnock been, okay, Senator, you just said that Herschel Walker's extreme because he won't support abortion even for those exceptions. So would you support restrictions on abortion with those exceptions?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like that should have been the question they should have asked him. Said, Senator Warnock, what type of restrictions would you support on abortion? And Chris, they don't support any anymore. The Democratic Party doesn't support any. It's abortion on demand, 24/7, all the way up to the 9th month of pregnancy.
Yeah, and that was the exchange where Warnock said that he doesn't believe that the government should be in the delivery room with the mother and the doctor. And that's when Herschel said, you're a pastor. You're forgetting there's another person that's in that room too, and it's the unborn baby. And it was just, the crowd just went, on his side, of course, went ballistic. It was a good line.
Powerful statement. We talked earlier, both of us brought up the fact there's a bunch of new polling out. Chris, how about that New York Times Siena poll you were mentioning earlier? Joe Biden's approval rating, not according to Fox News or Trafalgar or Breitbart or Rasmussen, but the New York Times has Joe Biden's approval rating sinking back down into the 30s at 39%.
Yeah.
So any late summer bump that he may have had is gone, at least according to the New York Times.
And I think the sentiment now seems to be leaning towards the Republicans' way. I think people know that. The pundits know that. So I think, Tim, the polls are going to be very accurate here in these last 22 days. And I believe that poll, he's down to 38%. They're going to be accurate now.
They don't want to be wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you know what else I noticed? This was interesting. I haven't seen a number this high before. The disapproval. So, Chris, I noticed in these polls, there's fewer and fewer undecideds or unknowns or no answers, and that should be the case, right? Because the election's 3 weeks away. The disapproval rating in that New York Times poll, 58% disapproval. There's a spread there of 19 points to the disapproval side. I haven't seen any poll with a disapproval rating that high for Joe Biden, and it came from the New York Times.
Yeah, and I bet you if you add in voters that not totally disapprove of him or disapprove of him somewhat, I bet you could add on to that number to make the total overall disapproval even higher. I mean, that's the strongest disapproval there. You add on somewhat disapproval, it's probably higher than, it's probably 75%.
Absolutely. And the generic congressional is now swung around and completely favors Republicans in almost every poll that has been reported the last few days. I think there was one outlier that had the Democrats up, but not nearly enough. Like, usually we say if the Republicans are anywhere close to the Democrats on the congressional generic, they're going to have a good year. And if they're ever up, well, then that's the potential for something major that could happen, depending on how the state races break.
Yeah, and, there could be the red wave. We keep talking about that. The race here in St. Louis, Andrew Jones race. Tim, I want to ask you, how big of a factor do you think Mantovani being on the ticket with him will help him in terms of getting Democratic voters who, hey, we're voting for a Republican for county executive. We see the county's going in the wrong direction. We might as well do it for our congressperson too.
I think from all the anecdotal evidence I've seen, with Mark Mantovani entering the county executive race, even though it was late, I think, Chris, people have woken up, and I think they're excited, and they're like, oh, you mean we have a choice in the county of St. Louis now? Oh, I know this Mantovani name. This is the third time I've seen this. Oh, he's also got a big chunk of the 1st Congressional in that area. Well, then, is there anybody running there I need to know about? And people are learning about Andrew Jones. I think there is some significant coattails there because Sam Page was such a horrific figure to a large chunk of people, both Republicans and independents, throughout the last 2 years. Yeah, so I think Andrew Jones could benefit from that.
I think there's definitely some coattail potential there. My lovely wife, who's Andrew's campaign manager, is reading Corey's book.
Really?
That just came out, and some very interesting things she is learning. I didn't know that Cori Bush went to private schools for her education. She didn't go to public school, but she's one of the main advocates that are against school choice. So, again, she wants security for her, but not for her constituents. She had a good education. Her parents exercise school choice, but she doesn't want her constituents to exercise school choice. Just a lot of hypocrisy there, Tim.
Wow. She reminds me very much, I guess that's why she wants to be the 5th member of the squad. Reminds me very much of the biography of Sandy Cortez, as Tucker Carlson calls AOC, who also, he calls her Sandy, because you know what, Chris, they found out that's what she called herself.
Really? Sandy.
She called herself Sandy, Chris, when she was, guess where? Not in the Bronx, when she was going to a private school in Westchester County, which is kind of the Ladue of that portion of lower New York. So Sandy Cortez went to a private school in Westchester County, just like apparently Cori Bush went to a private school here in the St. Louis region.
See, Sandy Cortez will say, look, I am a minority, I'm a Hispanic in an all-white area, and so I've got to try to assimilate and call myself Sandy, because I already have, my name is Ocasio Cortez, that's Spanish, Hispanic Spanish, so I gotta anglicize my first name so I can fit in.
Well, then why change it back, And so Tucker did this little riff on her last week. It was so funny. He went through the names of AOC, and he's like, well, first she was Sandy Cortez. Then she became some sort of, he says, like, some sort of Spanish conquistador. She's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, And now, Chris, she's like Prince. Now she's just AOC. She's like Sting or Prince or Bono. She's just AOC.
Well, remember, Tim, these people, they're always
rock stars.
They're always socialists when it comes to their thinking, but when it comes to their personal lives, they operate like capitalists. You remember she came out with that T-shirt business when she started getting notoriety and made a bunch of money off that. She's done other capitalistic endeavors to help with the cause. Another part of their hypocrisy.
Do you think Cori Bush is monetizing her brand in some way?
I think she's monetizing her brand through this book. I think this is the first start of it. There's no telling what type of advance that she's gotten out of it. But I think more than anything, Tim, she just wants to be on Capitol Hill and be an activist. That's her role she feels.
Yeah, they hate celebrity and the free market until they benefit from it, right? And then they're all for it. As you point out, for themselves.
Of course.
But kids in our area can't have private school options. Kids in our area, families in our area can't have protection from crime, but she can.
And we never hear about these people that talk about the 1% aren't paying their fair share, who are part of the 1%. You never hear about them adding a couple of more dollars to their income tax check that they pay at the end of the year, do they?
You can pay as much as you want.
As much as you want.
That's exactly right. All right, we got to wrap things up for this hour. Keep it right here. The 6 o'clock hour, straight ahead, featuring, of course, as he is on every Monday afternoon, former U.S. Senator Jim Talent. We'll talk about all things near and far with the good senator when we return here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
Like and subscribe to us on Rumble. News Talk STL. The latest news.
The pandemic is over.
Raised interest rates again. Migrants flown to Martha's Vineyard.
President Putin has made nuclear threats against Europe.
Biden's inflation.
Tougher times ahead.
The news you need to know.
Secure border.
This border is a disaster. Big government socialism wrecking this great country.
They will lose, and they know that.
The commitment to America.
And the place to talk about it.
Right here.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Man, what a great party you're throwing here. This wasp nest is great.
Yeah, man, we got about 70 wasps in here.
Too bad we can't fit any more wasps in here. It looks like they're having fun outside, stinging all the kids. Oh, man, who just pulled up?
Oh, no, it's the pest control company again with those green wheels. They seem to kill every one of my parties.
This is Derek, the owner of All Solutions Pest Control. Give us a call today at 636-486-7888. Learn more about our special $67 offer. You can visit us online at allsolutionspestcontrol.com.
If a pest-free home is your goal, call All Solutions Pest Control.
Hi, Sean Long for STL FenceWorks. For over 50 years, our time-honored commitment to quality, service, and affordability make STL FenceWorks the go-to authority for fence, deck, and leisure space projects. During these unsure times of severe inflation and supply shortages, you can depend on STL FenceWorks to meet your needs. Being the #1 fence and deck contractor in the state, we've leveraged our position to make contract buy-ins hedging against price increases. Also, our buying power has allowed us to stockpile fence and deck material. There are no shortages at STL FenceWorks. In fact, we have more fence and deck material on hand now than we have had at any time in our 50-year history. Lastly, our commitment to a quality and customer-first approach has never wavered. Your project will be completed by experienced craftsmen in a timely manner, and our lifetime warranty reinforces that commitment. STL FenceWorks warranty surpasses anything offered in the industry. Visit stlfenceworks.com and allow us to bring your backyard dreams to life. As always, at STL FenceWorks, your satisfaction is our passion.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 101.9, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. Another poll shows a large majority of Americans unhappy about where the country's headed. Bob Agnew reports.
More bad news for the president and Democrats in the latest Rasmussen survey. Only 27% of respondents say they think the country is headed in the right direction. The survey mirrors other recent polls that show voters trouble about the economy and inflation and favoring Republicans over Democrats, which is 3 weeks now before the midterm elections. When it comes to controlling Congress, a separate poll shows Republicans with an edge in 6 key states where President Biden's approval ratings are especially low. Bob Agnew reporting.
Almost 3 weeks after Hurricane Ian made landfall in southwest Florida, students in the area's largest school district are poised to return to class. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
Lee County has almost 120 schools. The district says 28 were reopening Monday and Tuesday, another 32 soon. The biggest challenge, says Superintendent Christopher Bernier, air quality.
Samples have been sent to the lab for every school that is able to open, and we are waiting those results. Just like you, we all want those results back as soon as possible. But I will not and cannot decide to open a school until we have documented that the air inside is safe.
He says they understand for many this may seem too soon.
We promise to be sensitive in our reopening.
I'm Julie Walker.
New UK Treasury Chief Jeremy Hunt has reversed most of an economic package announced by the government just weeks ago, including a planned cut in income taxes. Hunt said Monday he was scrapping almost all the tax cuts announced last month by the conservative government of Prime Minister Liz Truss. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 551 points. The Nasdaq rose 354. More at townhall.com.
Thank the pain relief at